skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Tech billionaire Elon Musk has weighed in on Labour's war on farmers.
The world's richest man tells Starmer to leave the farmers alone following the government's autumn budget.
Well, might Labour listen now their controversial inheritance tax changes are making international headlines?
Labour's lull isn't letting up, with the Conservatives leading in polls for the first time in 3 years after Rachel Reeves' budget blues. And speaking of the Tories, it's just hours until Rishi Sunak steps down as party leader and a new era begins. Don't miss our coverage on GB News throughout the morning.
Well, across the pond, could Kamala Harris actually get the keys to the White House? One poll suggests the Democrat candidate is marginally leading in key swing states.
Spain's flooding nightmare. The death toll rises to over 200 as locals brace for another bout of rain.
Now, has Sadiq Khan gone too far? Reports the Mayor of London wants to power tubes using solar panels. This morning, we're debating whether net zero is being put before common sense.
Elsewhere, Bonfire Night is nearly upon us, with one council wanting to ban loud fireworks in a bid to protect pets. We're asking this morning, is this a step too far?
Good morning. It's taken a while, but Manchester United have confirmed the appointment of new head coach Ruben Amorim after paying just under £1 million to release him early from his contract. It's also a big day of autumn internationals in rugby union, with New Zealand claiming Joe Marler has loaded the gun with his comments about the hacker.
Hello, it's going to be a largely cloudy weekend ahead, but with that, staying pretty mild, mostly light winds and only a bit of rain around. Pretty good conditions for any fireworks displays you may be heading to. I'll have the details coming up.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Morning to you. Do you know, it's this time of year, and therefore someone's complaining about fireworks again. We get it every single year. It's like it's a new thing. So people have suddenly decided, oh, some pets don't like it. I know it's really stressful.
It is.
If your pets don't like it. But does that mean we've got to ban it for everybody? I don't know, I just think it's...
My friend has 4 dogs. Don't ask me why. And the fireworks were going off last night, and they were beside themselves. There were 2 of them on anxiety medication, 2 of them were wetting the beds. She had a night of it last night. I think if you don't have pets, obviously it's lovely, isn't it? I mean, I could see the Ali Pali fireworks last night. It's beautiful.
For someone who doesn't have pets like me, what does it do to the animals? Is it?
They're terrified, Aidan. They get really stressed, they're scared of it.
It's not all animals.
No.
It's just some animals, some who
some
have
don't totally need, yeah.
I mean, I've never had a problem with animals and fireworks.
Does Rex have problems?
No, Rex doesn't, Timmy doesn't. They don't care. They just don't care.
It depends on the kind of animal that you have. But...
Well, we're used to fireworks in your house anyway. So.
No, we're not. Thank you very much indeed. But I know one of Paul Coyte's dogs is really terrified by it all.
Yeah.
Which is a worry. But I just think you've got to... I think if you restrict when you can have fireworks to 2 or 3 days a year, I think make that a bit tighter.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And also a time limit, so if this finish by 8 p.m. Because if it's getting dark at 4, I think that's reasonable, right? You can have your firework displays at 6 or 7, done by 8, and everyone can just go to bed.
But this idea that they all have to be banned or they all need to be silent fireworks and stuff like that.
And they're the rubbish ones, let's be honest. You just get a Catherine wheel. What would you be left with?
It's the lights, isn't it? You appreciate it.
You want the bangs.
No, the bangs are good. The bangs are good.
So
should there be a sound limit, is what some campaigners are asking for now. So the loudest ones, the loudest bangs need to be banned. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/yoursay. I think it'd be a shame not to have fireworks.
Yeah,
it would. You've just got to keep it all in perspective.
Did you go to an organised display when you were kids?
I'm going tonight.
Oh, yeah. Whereabouts?
Ali Pali.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that'd be fun.
I see. I don't like organised displays.
No, not me.
Why?
Back garden job.
Oh, no, that terrifies me. I think someone's going to hurt themselves. No. Wouldn't trust myself with that.
I like to do it in the back garden. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
There you go. Right, should we crack on?
Yeah.
Because tech billionaire Elon Musk has taken a swipe at the Prime Minister, demanding he leaves farmers alone following the government's budget.
Yes, posting on X, formerly Twitter, Musk dubbed the tax raid on farmers wrong, adding extra pressure on the Treasury to U-turn.
Well, it isn't the first time the pair have clashed. The entrepreneur previously hit out at Sir Keir's handling of the summer riots, and he called him two-tier Keir.
Well, this comes as the Conservatives are ahead in the polls for the first time since December 2021, coinciding with Rishi Sunak's final week at the helm.
Meanwhile, the winner of the Tory leadership race will be announced this morning, with members, of course, as you know, choosing between Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick.
Well, joining us in the studio is Deputy Political Editor of The Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikalova. Good to see you this morning,
Good to see
Anna.
you.
What do you make of Elon Musk's comments?
Well, I mean, look, I don't know why. If you take out who it's saying it, I don't know if many people will disagree. He says, leave the farmers alone. We owe farmers immense gratitude for making the food on our tables, which I think people should and do. I think a lot of it has been written in the last couple of days that farming is an extremely hard job, particularly in the current climate of taxes and regulations and the cost of it and trying to compete with cheap food coming from abroad. So, but of course, the reaction on X itself has just been, oh, he should stay out of our country. He should stop interfering.
Yeah, but come on. I mean, there's a fair point in that. I mean, as you say, if you look at the crux of what he says, it makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah.
You do wonder why he's delving into UK politics. He's not a UK citizen.
He isn't, but I think there's also... I mean, he's allowed an opinion.
Yeah.
As is anyone, and one can ignore that opinion. We don't have to listen to it. We don't have to go mad about it. He does have an actual personal interest, from my understanding, in food because his brother's business is all about food and financing it and, providing it, making it in America. So he's allowed an opinion, and I think there's a sort of... If you look at the reaction, it can sometimes be with someone like him, it's like people just really, really dislike someone who, at the end of the day, has been extremely successful from nothing. And maybe, actually, we should listen to people like that with immense business experience. But, of course, the government has made a real point of not inviting him to their investment summit. I mean, it's just a bit strange. No one's saying that he would have come particularly, but...
No, he has got lots of money to invest, though.
Exactly. This idea that you almost on principle don't want someone like that giving input is a bit strange, particularly when you look at the people who they do have giving input. I mean, there's another story in the Telegraph about our Environment Secretary wearing £400 wellies, gifted to him, of course, by, once again, Labour donor Lord Ali.
Do you think we'll see the government U-turn on this? And if they don't U-turn, change the thresholds? Because it is a bit like winter fuel allowance, isn't it, where the threshold just seems so low?
I think with winter fuel allowance, I said from day one they're not going to U-turn because it was such an early big call that to have U-turned on that would have made Rachel Reeves look pretty weak, especially ahead of the budget. But I think on this, there is going to be so much pressure because the point is they have designed this policy with what sounds like very expensive farms in mind. And Steve Reed has got an article today saying, look, don't worry, farmers, the family farms aren't being affected. It's these really rich people have been buying up farms and almost pricing you out for the tax breaks. But the truth is, the thresholds they've set do very much affect family farms.
Well, except, and I'm just trying to put the other side before people start having a go at me, because we spoke to Darren Jones yesterday, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, who was saying, there's £1 million limit, and then if you are actually a child of the farmer, then that would increase to 2 million because of the natural inheritance tax thresholds on that. So he said you'd be looking at in excess of 2 million before it even kicked in.
Absolutely, but again, if that's the sort of thing that sounds great for him to say, and a lot of voters will absolutely say, "Oh, 2 million sounds like a lot." When you actually look at working farms, 2 million is not that much, and it's certainly these aren't people who are walking around in £400 willies, for example. These are people who are working every day and having a very tough time of it. So I think the concern is that the threshold has been set too low. There's already a proposal to at least raise it to 5 million because otherwise you risk what happens in France, which is they have a tax system which basically incentivises estates to be broken up.
Yeah.
And you sort of see it doesn't take a few years, it takes a few decades, but that is what actually happens. Big estates, which include, obviously, land and arable land, just get smaller and smaller and smaller, in which the actual country does not benefit because you don't have then these producers of food.
It'd be an interesting attack point, won't it, for, and let's be honest, Kemi Badenoch, when she is crowned Tory party leader. I'd be astounded if she didn't win at this stage.
Well, I'll be there. I'll let you know if there's any immediate surprise.
See, I wouldn't be too confident. I don't think you can predict the Tories. I don't think you can. I think we've seen it before. We'll see it again. We'll have to see it at 11 o'clock this morning.
What do you think?
I think it will be her. I think she has been a front runner with the membership. I think last night there seemed to have been some reports early coming out saying that the gap between the two is quite large, which to me suggests it's her. I think if people were saying it's a very, very close result, then yes, I would say, well, maybe Robert Jenrick somehow made it. But we will see. Not long to wait now.
Yeah, just a few hours to go. And when we see a shadow cabinet be formed, do you think it would be quite quick, or do you think it could take a few days?
You'd hope so. I mean, they've had so long for the leadership contest. You'd think they would have figured all of that out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a serious point because we've already got a front page today saying the Tories are ahead in the polls, and I think there'll be a lot of Tories sort of chomping at the bit saying, right, we need to get organised and actually start holding the government to account.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting couple of days on the opposition benches. That's for sure. Anna, we'll see you later on. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, do remember to stay tuned on GB News throughout the morning. At 10 a.m, Olivia Utley and Ben Leo are bringing you a special edition of Saturday Morning Live ahead of the final results to decide the next leader of the Conservative Party. That's straight after us this morning, isn't it?
It certainly is. Now, let's have a look at the United States, should we? Because Kamala Harris could be on track to become America's first female president. If you believe the current polls, I mean, honestly, this really is too close to call at the minute. Apparently, she's leading by a very narrow margin in some key swing states.
Well, she's also reported to have a lead over Donald Trump among American voters who have already cast an early ballot.
Yeah, but that's always the Democrats always do better in the early ballots. Don't know why. But Republicans are believed to be planning lawsuits if Trump loses the election.
Well, joining us live from Washington is US commentator Angelina McCaughey. Good to see you this morning, Angelina. What should we make on these polls that Harris is leading by a small margin in some key swing states?
I think that it's definitely not a deciding factor of how the election is going to turn out. I think that a key deciding factor in this election is going to be the motivation that both Kamala and Trump bring to the rallies this weekend, and whether or not, they're able to motivate voters to come out on Tuesday. I think that's really the deciding factor, especially because Trump supporters, they want to be out there on election day. They want to be hitting the polls. So it's really too close to call. And you really can't say that just because Harris is leading slightly in the polls, that it's definitely a win for them.
When you look at some of the key swing states, I mean, it would seem to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to sort of policy, Trump is ahead on the economy, which seems to be the number one issue. He's ahead on immigration, which is coming in third. Harris seems to be leading on reproductive rights, which is a sort of number two on the list of important issues.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I think that another big issue, of course, is the conflict that's going on in the Middle East. And people are seeing that both Trump and Harris are really equal in that area, but they feel that Harris is a bit more not honest, isn't as honest as Donald Trump, or forthright about what actually they plan to do in ending that conflict in the Middle East.
Angelina, what can we read into the early voter turnout numbers? More than 68 million people have already voted.
Yeah, more than 60. I think that all that shows is that preference. Like back in the day, in 2020, early voting was really, really popular, and that was due to COVID. But now it shows that early voting is more of a preference. It's more convenient than going out to the polls on Tuesday and skipping work. Early voting, you can do it more on your schedule. So I think that's definitely an indicator of that. But I still think that a lot of people, and what I'm hearing on the streets, a lot of people don't really have faith in the early voting system. They want to go out to the voting polls on Tuesday to actually cast their ballot in person.
And what's going to be happening in terms of sort of security around the polling on Tuesday? Because of all the controversy last time, surely the authorities must be putting something in place to help deal with any legal challenges which may or may not come after the election result.
You're definitely seeing security tighten up in D.C., just the standard security around the White House. You're seeing it around the Capitol building where they're putting up the fences, so you're not able to get close. You're not able to protest or anything like that. The protests that are happening are out on the street. So you're definitely seeing a lot tighter security around these things, yes.
What about reports that Republicans are believed to be planning a lawsuit if Donald Trump loses this election?
I think that Republicans will definitely continue to file a lawsuit if Donald Trump loses this election. I think that the Democrats are also going to fight. I think either way, you're going to see a battle. I've even heard rumors that they're of a potential tie, which would be absolutely outrageous to see a potential tie in American history, in which case that the vote would actually go to Congress, the House of Representatives in January. So we wouldn't even get a result until that time. But people are anticipating the legal battle after the elections to last about 10 days or even more. So we're definitely not expecting the results to come in right away on January 5th.
OK, Angelina, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. It's going to be very interesting to see on the night. We'll be
fascinating. We'll be here
right through the night because, as you say, we might not get the sort of a verified result any time in the sort of on the Wednesday, as it were. But what you will get is US networks calling it, which is what they do. So you'd have a pretty clear indication as to where it stands. But it's going to be a really difficult one. And basically, half of the United States is going to be very unhappy.
Yes.
By the end of it, by the look of this.
I mean, it really is on a knife edge, isn't it? But you can stay up with us on Tuesday night, through the night, 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. We will have everything here for you on GB News. It's going to be a good night, isn't it?
Should be a good night. It's going to be a fascinating night, either which way it goes. Right, let's have a look at some of the other key stories heading into the newsroom this morning at 6:17.
And the Ukrainian leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, has renewed calls for the US and the UK to allow his troops to use Western-made long-range weapons. In recent weeks, North Korea has continued to deploy more soldiers to Russia, with Defence Secretary John Healey warning of the growing alliance between North Korea and Moscow.
The drug watchdog has warned it's received up to 10 reports of deaths linked to weight loss jabs, such as Ozempic. There are others. Cases of serious reactions to the drug, including nausea and vomiting, are now in the thousands. It comes as the General Pharmaceutical Council announced plans for additional safeguards to ensure online pharmacies are properly checking patient information.
And a royal biographer has revealed that King Charles has reportedly blocked Prince Andrew's annual allowance worth £1 million. The brothers have suffered a testy relationship since the Duke of York stepped away from public life in 2019 following revelations of Andrew's friendship with paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The Duke has always denied any wrongdoing.
The whole online pharmacy thing is a bit worrying.
Oh, yeah.
Because on that weight loss thing, you went and tested that, didn't you?
I did test the theory. Yep, right here on my laptop, and you can just buy it from a high street pharmacy.
Because you can just put in whatever you want.
And you just make up your weight. Yes, you just say you're obese, and you can pick up these weight loss jabs.
And it's just, that's really worrying, actually. These things are meant to be properly checked. Anyway, we'll see what safeguards are going to get put in place on that, because I think it's really important. Otherwise, we'll all just be popping whatever pills we fancy.
I know.
That isn't necessarily
it's a bit worrying,
a good
isn't
idea.
It? Especially for young girls as well, if you can just head on and order it. There's no checks on ID or weight, anything at all. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say. Let's have a look at the weather now with Alex Burkhill.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office on this Saturday morning. Quite a calm weekend ahead, and with that, a fair bit of cloud around as well. That cloud will keep things mild, but it is also going to bring some spots of rain. Most places will stay often dry, but like I said, a bit of rain coming and going. Nonetheless, it should be pretty light if you do see any at all. That cloud will make it feel a bit mild at times, with temperatures actually peaking around 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but the lack of sunshine means it's not going to feel especially warm at all. As we go through into this evening, and we stick with the largely cloudy but mild theme, which is relatively good news if you're heading to any fireworks displays. For most, it is going to stay pretty calm. Just do be aware across the north of Scotland, the winds will be strengthening here, so turning quite blustery. But further south, for many, it's going to stay pretty calm. Still the chance of some spots of rain, but they're still going to be pretty light if you do see any rain, so don't worry too much. And with the cloud, temperatures not dropping a huge amount, but again towards the south coast of England, here it could turn a little bit breezy as well. Overnight, most places are going to stay fairly cloudy. Some breaks in the cloud though over East Anglia, maybe central parts of England, could allow for temperatures to dip a little bit more than elsewhere, so a slightly fresher feel, perhaps some mist and fog patches developing, and also across eastern parts of Scotland could turn a little bit chilly here, perhaps a touch of frost. Otherwise a mild start for many of us tomorrow morning. As we go through the day itself, again, the cloud may be thick enough for some rain, perhaps in the southwest, some outbreaks of rain moving through, also across parts of Northern Ireland, and even elsewhere, 1 or 2 spots can't be ruled out. But I think for many, it may be a slightly brighter day than today, a greater chance of seeing some sunshine, especially towards the north and east of Scotland, and temperatures once more, well, on the mild side for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, still to come, should loud fireworks be banned? We're going to be discussing that next.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Don't forget you can tune in to Nana Akwe live on GB News from 3 p.m. today.
Now, a quieter bonfire night could only be a year away in parts of England if a councillor's call to ban noisy fireworks is approved. I can't see this happening.
Well, the Labour councillor in St Albans has suggested noise restrictions from next year would help wildlife and people with additional needs like PTSD or autism.
Some fear a ban would hurt charity fundraisers and, frankly, spoil a lot of fun.
That's true.
Will Hollis reports.
A spectacle across the skyline. Bonfire night arrives with a bang, but for how much longer? Like hundreds of towns and cities across the UK, St Albans in Hertfordshire goes big during bonfire season. But Councillor Mike Hobday hopes to drop the boom from next year's fireworks display and beyond.
We all know that the noisiest fireworks are bad for our pet cats and dogs, they're bad for our livestock and horses, and we know that they're bad for our military veterans if they suffer from PTSD. So it's time we move to quieter fireworks.
At a St Albans District Council meeting, the Labour councillor set a motion to ban fireworks louder than 90 decibels. Rockets and large displays reach 170. The proposal is to ban noisy fireworks on council-owned land like here at Verulamium Park, where an event is held every year. But some people fear that restrictions could put the display at risk.
I like fireworks that are really noisy. I like to feel, you know, when it pops, you kind of feel it. The harm it does on sort of vulnerable people and dogs and children. I think, especially in a kind of local area, we don't really need that.
I think the noise is part of the actual event as well, and the bangs and everything else, and it just makes sense to me that it's part of that.
The RSPCA says loud fireworks can be harmful to wildlife. Liberal Democrat leader of the council, Paul Decourt, pushed back, warning that a ban would encourage more home displays, triggering wider disturbance.
We may well find that there was not only much less money raised for those extremely good causes, but also an increase in the disturbance to animal welfare that people have raised.
A briefing given to councillors suggests quieter fireworks could put charity displays, like the ones organised by St Albans Cathedral, at risk.
There's no reason to think that quieter fireworks are any less attractive to paying customers than noisy fireworks. And they have the great advantage that they're better for animal welfare.
As fireworks light the sky before November 5th, will the bang of Bonfire night soon go out with a whimper? Will Hollis, GB News, St Albans.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's a bit wokery gone mad, all of this. I mean, I really do. I mean, the fact he's saying, well, it's bad for wildlife, it's bad for livestock, it's bad for veterans. I know loads of veterans who love fireworks.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's just... I admit there are... And do we have to turn down everything if it's for those people who... I mean, if you've got autism and if these things affect you, well, let's take measures to protect those people. Doesn't mean the rest of us have to miss out.
Wear ear defenders or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not very many nights a year. I think you're right. I think it should be limited probably to Diwali, Bonfire night.
New Year.
And New Year. Three days of the year, that's probably a good idea. But it is great. And if you enjoy your fireworks, I mean, they are just beautiful, aren't they? But then I don't live in a home that's affected by pets that struggle with the sounds. I'm sure if you are living in one of those homes, it is quite distressing to see your animal like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, however, I think the responsibility needs to be on pet owners to do everything that they can, rather than us as a society to give everything up, to make everything so bland.
Yes. Yeah.
Am I being harsh? I don't know.
Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Now, as it is November, our thoughts are starting to turn to the festive season, of course. So how would you like to win Christmas on us?
Well, you can do just that with 25,025 pence in cash to spend. Oh, is it £25? Yes, in cash to spend on a very Merry Christmas, and also shopping vouchers and a GB News goodie bag, all to be won in our Great British Giveaway. And the best news, we'll get it all to you in time for the big day. Here are all the details that you need.
You could win Christmas on us this year.
Yes. Now, we've got all the sport with Aidan for you in just a couple of minutes.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What about train Wi-Fi?
It's so funny the Times did this story, because I was on the train yesterday trying to do some work and connecting to the Wi-Fi, and it happens all the time. It just doesn't work. It's pathetic. And then I opened the Times and they've done a massive investigation. Loads of different rail routes from north to south.
Was that the James Bond thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. What's
I think, well, that passenger got through, or almost got through, one episode of one James Bond movie in 8 hours.
But you know, it's interesting. We call it train Wi-Fi, but it isn't. It's just really a SIM card on a train, really. So if your own phone's not going to get signal, why would we assume that the train's going to have signal? It just doesn't work like that. Unless you're in Japan or South Korea, whose infrastructure is infinitely better than ours, you're just not going to get signal. You have to download those films way before you get on
There is technology that can help with that. You know, there really is. If they found ways to put it underground, they can get it on ground and get you going. I definitely think, you know, with the price that we're paying for these tickets, they can get the Wi-Fi going. There is technology.
That's why it's so frustrating, isn't
Call
it?
Elon, get a Starlink, let's go.
If you're a passenger paying hundreds of pounds for a season ticket or whatever you call it, and, you know, commute to work every single day, and you're paying all this money, and you can't
so
get
expensive.
Wi-Fi.
You'd expect Wi-Fi at the basic, exactly.
But it happens with phone signal as well. I'll be walking down London in Park Lane or somewhere else, or down on the south coast. I just don't have phone signal, and I think to myself, what on earth is going on?
Doesn't it feel like 5G's made it worse, though?
Yeah.
Because I feel like 4G, that didn't happen so much, but 5G just feels like...
Yeah, and then I always get this little E in the top corner of my phone, and I don't get any signal. I think it's got worse over the past couple of years, yeah, especially with 5G. I agree with that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
6:34. Now, you know we love to hear what you think, especially in our poll of the day. So we're asking today, can Tories regain seats from Labour and Reform with a new leader? They are ahead in the polls at the moment.
For the first time in 3 years.
I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? Anyway, we'll bring you those live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned.
Yep, and the final result will be announced later in Nana Aqua's show. And for all the latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Right, let's get the latest from Aidan McGee. Morning.
Good morning to you both. Good to see you.
We finally know that Amorim is heading to Man United.
Yes, I mean, look, I criticised United over the last couple of days and said that there was a bit of pantomime going on, but I think they grasped the nettle yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really. It was turning down. I think they grasped it yesterday. They made an announcement around about, I think it's about 11:30, something like that, and then Ruben Amorim gave his own sort of version of events in the evening after his own team had recorded a 5-1 victory in their league, which made 10 wins in a row for them. So he's in fine fettle as he goes off to Manchester United, but still got a couple of games to go.
Didn't seem desperate to join, though,
Well,
did he?
that's an interesting point, actually, because United paid £900,000 to release him early, and I thought, when I heard that, I thought, oh, right, he's joining tomorrow. And no, that's so that he can join on November the 11th, which we knew earlier in the week. So they paid him to get him in 3 weeks or 2 weeks' time. Now, if they hadn't paid that, he wouldn't have joined until December. He then revealed in his press conference afterwards that he initially said, when he was contacted on Tuesday, a day after Erik ten Hag's sacking, that he was told that he had to take the job now or never, because he said, oh, well, I'd like to see out the season with Sporting Lisbon, which means he wouldn't join Man United until next summer. So, yeah, if I was a cynic, I would say it doesn't exactly look as if he's walking across hot coals to get to Old Trafford.
No.
His own player, his own compatriot, Diogo Dalot, said yesterday that he's got to understand that this job is going to be 5 times more stressful than it ever was at Sporting Lisbon. And Sporting Lisbon is a big club. So, look, as I say, he's got a little bit of time now at least. They play Chelsea tomorrow at Stamford Bridge. Ruud van Nistelrooy is taking charge of that one. But we've also had Erik ten Hag as well in the last 24 hours release a statement. It's quite common for an outgoing manager, particularly at a really big club, to release a statement either through the League Managers Association or their representatives. And Erik ten Hag looking back fondly, as you might expect, on his time at Manchester United. And he released a statement as well saying to the supporters, he wishes them nothing but success. Thanks for always being there with the club. Whether it was a game away from home or a tough match at Old Trafford, your support was unshakable. So a very dignified exit for Erik ten Hag. And you know, he did win 2 trophies there. And look, 2.5 years, he did get plenty of time, but he always carried the role with dignity and respect befitting of such high office in English football.
There's been an arrest, hasn't there, after the burglary of the home of Ben Stokes?
Yeah, good news, actually, because we mentioned earlier in the week, didn't we, that Ben Stokes had revealed that he'd been burgled on, I think it was October the 17th, while he was in Pakistan playing for England. He recorded a knock of only 37 that day because his mind was clearly elsewhere. And he released some pictures saying that some items had been stolen, including his OBE, which he was awarded for winning the World Cup with England in 2019. There were also some 3 necklaces, a ring, and a designer bag. And he said it's important that we find the perpetrator. And Durham Police announced yesterday that they have made an arrest. So there's some closure there. I don't think he's ever going to get the stuff back. But look, I mean, it should hopefully send a message out if there's a charge that it can't be done in future. And they're really vulnerable, these sports people, because you can see on screen that they're not at home, can't you?
Well, this is true. But let's see how that case progresses. Now, this row about the hacker.
Yeah. Won't go away, will it?
It won't go away. But interestingly, Joe Marler, who put the controversial tweet out, isn't actually going to be a match, is it?
This is funny.
So he's caused all this trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate too much because it's personal reasons and it could be anything. But yeah, I mean, imagine you and me walking through the park and you see these bullies and you shout something at them and then run off and leave me to deal with it. You know, that's exactly what Joe Marler's done here. Yeah. And he's walked away. And Scott Barrett, who's the New Zealand captain, they kick off today at 3:10 at Twickenham, by the way, at the start of the Autumn Internationals. He said that Joe Marler has loaded the gun. And that's a bit ominous when you're facing down that hacker, not to mention how good New Zealand are as well. And he said that it means a great deal outside of rugby. And I remember actually my team, QPR, last year, our manager, to try and motivate the players, brought in somebody to do the hacker. It didn't really work. We were still terrible. But it really, when you see it close up, it really is something to behold, and I think you're going to need more than a few teapots to retort to that. But nonetheless, it'll be a good mark of how far England have come. I mean, they surprised a few people getting last year to the semi-finals of the World Cup, despite not really impressing between the first game and the last game. But we'll see how far Steve Borthwick has taken this team. We'll know more tomorrow. Scotland in action as well at 20-6.
OK,
great.
Lovely stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Aidan.
Do you sort of think England are just going to get absolutely trounced?
Yeah, maybe.
Don't
maybe.
say that.
They've got a bit of resilience when they face the big teams, I have to say.
Yeah.
They haven't
Pull it out the bag.
They haven't beaten New Zealand since 2012 at Twickenham, so we're going back quite a long way.
Yeah, OK. Numbers are against us, aren't they? But you've got to have hope. We don't have hope. What have you got? Thanks, Aidan.
Cheers.
Do stay with us. Still to come, Kevin Schofield and Stephanie Tecci are here to go through the papers with us.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Her name is synonymous with fashion. Karen Millen, the high street designer whose dresses have been worn by some of the world's most famous women, including the Princess of Wales.
Yes, but in a recent Daily Mail interview conducted by our showbiz juggernaut, as I call her, Steph Tecci, 63-year-old Karen confessed she isn't immune from worries about her appearance.
Well, this summer, Karen took the plunge with a £35,000 facelift using the very latest surgical techniques. Now, to hear more of her story, we're delighted to be joined by Karen herself and consultant plastic surgeon Dr. Tunç Tiryaki, co-founder of the London Regenerative Institute. So, how did you two get together?
That was a meeting at the Parliament, wasn't it?
It was actually, yeah, through mutual friends, really.
So you already knew of Tunç and you knew his expertise. How did you come to the decision to kind of go ahead with this? I was reading the Mail article and apparently one day you looked in the mirror. And I've heard this story so many times before,
yeah, I know,
from not least my mum and my nan.
Yeah.
And they said they looked in the mirror and thought, goodness me.
I know. I think it's that menopausal thing when suddenly things just change. And yeah, for me, it was coming out of lockdown almost, where I was probably on the back end of menopause, and I just suddenly looked in the mirror and it was like, oh my God, what's happened to me?
Because I guess you still, I mean, for me, I'm 35, I still feel like a 20-year-old or even an 18-year-old. Does that change as you get into sort of your...
Unfortunately not, right?
Well, it does change to a certain extent, but, you know, I've always looked after myself, so I've always kept fit and looked after my skin, so, you know, it did come as a bit of a shock. I mean, I know, obviously, ageing happens to us all and we have to embrace that, but there's a certain amount that we have to put up with and then, you know, other things can step in.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
6:43, let's have a look at some of the newspapers for you. And the Telegraph has Elon Musk criticising Labour's budget changes to inheritance tax for farms.
The Times also opens on the budget, warning hundreds of GPs and care homes could be forced to close thanks to tax hikes.
The Eye has reports of a new poll suggesting the Tories are now more popular than Labour for the first time in 3 years.
The Guardian claims Donald Trump's campaign team is preparing to challenge the US election result should he lose.
And the Mail has an exclusive that the King has apparently blocked Prince Andrew's annual allowance of £1 million a year.
Well, joining us now to go through the papers is journalist and broadcaster Stephanie Tecci and the political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Morning, you two.
Morning.
And Kevin, let's start with Elon Musk, shall we?
Yeah.
Who says that the Prime Minister is wrong on the farm tax raid.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of history here, isn't there, between Musk and Starmer. Elon Musk clearly is not a big fan of the Prime Minister. If you remember back in the summer, he said there was going to be civil war over the riots after Southport. And he's just kind of kept this feud rolling along, and this is just giving him an excuse. I mean, he has this thing that he does, Elon Musk, is he just sort of fires off like a one-line tweet, which is what he's done here, basically saying, leave farmers alone. Now, I'll be amazed if Elon Musk is across the intricacies of UK inheritance tax law. He just doesn't like the government. But, you know, it's a good story, and I can understand why the Telegraph have put it on the front page. And it is an issue for the government, because farmers, you know, they're not slow to protest, and they are going to protest about this. They're going to be outside Parliament, and they're going to be shouting very loudly, and it's a test of whether the government politically feel it's worth having this fight or not. Now, thus far, they've been adamant they're going to stick to their guns, that they say it's only a minority of farms which will be affected. However, as I say, there will be big protests about this, and it'll put a lot of political pressure on
I think it's quite interesting. Elon Musk keeps on sticking his oar in UK politics, and he's one of the world's richest men. So if he's got such a problem with this, then, you know, invest some money in our farmland. That's how I see it. But I do think it's one of those things where UK politics is an interesting point of time where I think the world is watching to see what Keir Starmer is doing in this country. And, you know, stuff like farming is going to get people's backs up.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. It's not that I disagree with him. It's just I don't like anyone interfering, really, if they haven't got any skin in the game, as it were. Meanwhile, in the Telegraph, Steph, amidst all this, the Environment Secretary is wearing a pair of £420 wellies that were a gift from, guess who?
Lord Ali. He's been pictured on a farm visit this week wearing £420 by a brand called Le Chameau, and the director is none other than Lord Ali. And I think, you know, Labour's already received a lot of heat about receiving free gifts, and this would wind farmers up, because you're not going to see farmers wearing £420 boots. They're going to be quite practical. So I feel like he's just read the room wrong here, and it's just like, you know, with Labour already receiving so much flack for such choices, you think he would have just been practical and comfortable. But at the same time, I haven't seen, like, you know, such a government receiving so much people just looking at what they're wearing, what they're, you know, doing, where they're receiving their gifts from. So if I was a Labour MP, I'd be, you know, quite scared to be wearing things which you think could rock the boat.
I mean, they're not helping themselves, though, are they? I mean, they know that all eyes, as you say, are on them, especially with Lord Ali gifted items. And then you've got the Minister for the Environment, who's probably got most eyes on him at the moment, as you say, with the political pressure over inheritance tax on farms, wearing Lord Ali's wellies. I mean, who's advising them?
It's very odd. You're right, politically, it was a daft thing to do. I mean, you can pick up a pair of wellies for far less than 420 quid. And also, they look like they're box fresh, those wellies. He looks a bit ridiculous, really. He's obviously just stuck them on that morning, gotten his picture taken. He doesn't look like he's used to... They're not well-worn wellies, put it that way.
No.
And I just don't understand why, if I had as much money as Lord Ali's got, why is he spending it all on kitting out basically every member of the cabinet? Almost, it looks like. Why is he spending his money on clothes?
It's smart,
for them?
He has a background in fashion.
He does, but I'm not sure. Does that really extend to what you wear down the farm? I don't know.
The problem with it is that it smacks of champagne socialism.
It does,
doesn't it?
It does.
And you know, that might not be the case for a lot of these people who just say, "Oh, I've got some free wellies, I'll chuck them on." But it, you know, you've got to think ahead. It's common sense.
Definitely.
It's politically, especially if you are about to, you know, potentially hammer a lot of farmers financially, and you're parading around in
if you want to win,
wellies.
if you want to win people over, you want to make sure that you're acting like you can actually connect with them. Like, I'm not just showing up
and you have
for
an
a
understanding.
photo call, you know, just show and tell.
Kevin, what do you predict? Sorry, Steve. What do you predict will happen here? Do you think there'll be a U-turn, or at least a climb down?
At the moment, I don't think so. No, I mean, the thing is as well, the money is so tight that they really don't have any room for manoeuvre. So if they were to give up on this, they need to find the money somewhere else.
They've talked about a £22 billion black hole. The OBR has said a £9.2 billion black hole, but which is pressures rather than a sort of specific black hole, and they're raising £40 billion in taxes. So isn't there room to manoeuvre?
Yeah, I mean, we were asking them about this, and after the budget actually is, well, hang on a minute, you've talked about 22 billion for a very long time. Why 40? Well, they say that's to fill the gap, but also to spend on the things that they want to spend. Well, for instance, you know, tax, pay settlements for public sector workers as well.
Well, there's admission of that then.
So you know, so there's, but there's also the spending plans that the government's got on top of the £22 billion that they say they need just to basically keep their heads above water. But when you look at further down the track, economic growth is not forecast to be what they want it to be at the moment. So that will obviously potentially hit their tax take. So really, there isn't. You know, if they want to meet their spending commitments, if they were to U-turn on this, they'd need to find the money somewhere else, and I'm not sure where they would find it from.
I wonder if the headline writer for the Financial Times, Kevin, may be getting a talking to this morning, because if I was Nigel Farage today, I'd be wondering what's going on. It says reform is needed to make Britain a great place for business.
No, I know. When I saw that at first, I automatically thought it was a story by Nigel Farage, but actually, no, it's a Keir Starmer op-ed about reform with a small r, not with a capital R. So he's basically written a piece. I've got to say, it's quite impenetrable because it's for the FTs, a lot of finance in it, as you would imagine. Basically saying, look, don't worry, we're not going to tax and spend for the next 5 years. It was a one-off in the budget to get to balance the books, and now it's about getting a bigger bang for our buck. Basically, we're going to reform. But in terms of the detail about reform, it's one thing saying it, but there's no real detail as to what that reform looks like. In fact, a lot of people are obviously nervous that spending will get out of control once again, and Labour will need to come back and ask for more tax rises, which, you know, we'll come on to the story in a bit about the Tories being in the lead in one opinion poll. You know, as we get closer to an election, if the budget doesn't work and they have to come back looking for more money, then that's really going to, I think people will be really annoyed.
And that's what the IFS came out and said yesterday, didn't
Another
they?
£9 billion coming.
Yeah, with growth being anemic, that they will have to raise tax again in the next 2 years.
Yeah, everything hinges on economic growth. If they don't grow the economy more than by what the OBR are predicting, then they're going to be in quite a lot of bother, I think.
Which seems extraordinary, considering it seems to be SMEs which are paying, you know, taking the brunt of the pain.
Well, yeah, exactly, and you know we have to rely on them to, you know, employ people, make profit to grow the economy, and if that doesn't work, then yeah, as I say, there'll be an awful lot of bother.
Steph, in the Mirror this morning. Chows and
Chow. The King and Queen, they had a successful visit to Down Under, but now they've set their eyes on visiting Italy in 2025.
Nice.
I think it's a positive sign for King Charles that his doctors are giving him the green light to do more travel in 2025 amid his battle with cancer. But I think the King is seeing it as he's making up for lost time. I think he really wants to visit these countries and really build those connections between our country and Italy, which is a close neighbour. And apparently this trip in 2025 will see the King and Queen have an audience with the Pope, which I think will be quite interesting to see that connection there. But I think as well, the reason why Italy is a safe bet is that it's not going to have much controversy like Australia had. So I think it'll be a nice, calm visit for the royals.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? But actually meeting the Pope would be something as well, which is significant.
Have you ever met a Pope?
No.
Any Pope before? No.
I'd like to.
I'd love to meet the Pope.
Yeah,
same
that'd
here.
be amazing.
Catholic?
I'm Catholic, yeah. My mum would love to meet
My mum has
love it.
pictures of the Pope at home on her walls. Yeah, she's that kind of Roman Catholic.
I'm C of E. So
that's nearly Catholic. That's quite close.
Yeah.
Quite close.
That's still quite. I mean, it'd still be something to meet him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I've been at the Vatican.
Kevin, we've got 30 seconds. Tell us about the Tories ahead in the polls.
Yeah, I mean, I would. You can really take it or leave it with this one. I mean, we're years away from a general election, so it doesn't really matter at this moment. But, you know, if we're in a situation in 3-4 years' time where the Tories are still in the lead in the polls, then that's when Labour will need to worry. A lot will obviously hinge on who wins the Tory leadership, which we'll find out later this morning, and whether they can get the party cracking again.
Yeah. All right, you two, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
we'll see you later.
Let's have a look at the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office on this Saturday morning. Quite a calm weekend ahead, and with that, a fair bit of cloud around as well. That cloud will keep things mild, but it is also going to bring some spots of rain. Most places will stay often dry, but like I said, a bit of rain coming and going. Nonetheless, it should be pretty light if you do see any at all. That cloud will make it feel a bit mild at times, with temperatures actually peaking around 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but the lack of sunshine means it's not going to feel especially warm at all. As we go through into this evening, and we stick with the largely cloudy but mild theme, which is relatively good news if you're heading to any fireworks displays. For most, it is going to stay pretty calm. Just do be aware across the north of Scotland, the winds will be strengthening here, so turning quite blustery. But further south, for many, it's going to stay pretty calm. Still the chance of some spots of rain, but they're still going to be pretty light if you do see any rain, so don't worry too much. And with the cloud, temperatures not dropping a huge amount, but again, towards the south coast of England, here it could turn a little bit breezy as well. Overnight, most most places are going to stay fairly cloudy. Some breaks in the cloud, though, over East Anglia, maybe central parts of England, could allow for temperatures to dip a little bit more than elsewhere, so a slightly fresher feel. Perhaps some mist and fog patches developing, and also across eastern parts of Scotland could turn a little bit chilly here, perhaps a touch of frost. Otherwise, a mild start for many of us tomorrow morning. As we go through the day itself, again, the cloud may be thick enough for some rain, perhaps in the southwest, some outbreaks of rain moving through, also across parts of Northern Ireland, and even elsewhere, 1 or 2 spots can't be ruled out. But I think for many, it may be a slightly brighter day than today, a greater chance of seeing some sunshine, especially towards the north and east of Scotland, and temperatures once more, well, on the mild side for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Elon Musk has weighed in on Labour's war on farmers.
The world's richest man tells Starmer to leave the farmers alone following the government's autumn budget.
Or might Labour listen now their controversial inheritance tax changes appear to be making headlines internationally?
Labour's lull isn't letting up, with the Conservatives leading in polls for the first time in 3 years after Rachel Reeves's budget blues. And speaking of the Tories, just hours until Rishi Sunak steps down as party leader and a new era begins. Don't miss our coverage on GB News throughout the morning.
Could Kamala Harris actually take the keys to the White House? Well, one poll is suggesting that she's marginally leading in key swing states.
The death toll rises in Spain to over 200 as locals brace for another bout of rain today.
In the capital, the city can't gone too far. Reports the Mayor of London wants to power tubes using solar panels. So we're debating this morning whether net zero is being put before common sense.
Elsewhere, Bonfire Night is nearly upon us, with one council wanting to ban loud fireworks in a bid to protect pets. We're asking, is this a step too far?
It's a big day in the Premier League with the top 3, Manchester City, Liverpool and Arsenal, all in action. We'll hear how non-league minnows Tamworth pulled off a shock in the FA Cup first round. And there's the Brazilian Grand Prix to look forward to. More later.
Hello, it's going to be a largely cloudy weekend ahead, but with that, staying pretty mild, mostly light winds and only a bit of rain around. Pretty good conditions for any fireworks displays you may be heading to. I'll have the details coming up.
Just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Now, she doesn't want to talk about it this morning, but I can't help myself because this is a girl who loves Taylor Swift.
I do.
And loves cake.
That's also true.
And there's a Taylor Swift life-size cake.
Yeah, but it looks
in the
rubbish. No.
Was this the exhibition that's going on in Birmingham?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I don't
I think
know.
there's an exhibition of top cakes.
How are you across that?
Well, you know...
Aidan McGee.
Yeah.
Across everything, to be fair.
Anyway, but it was damaged in transit. Look at that.
She lost her hand.
The hands came off.
Oh, dear. Oh gosh.
Oh, yes, I saw this, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. It's meant to look like Taylor Swift.
It sort of does a bit.
Do you think?
Yeah.
It sort of does a bit, yeah.
Bingo wings there.
It just looks quite unappetising to me. Where's camera 8? Over here. There we are. Yeah, it doesn't do anything for me, to be honest, but I do love Taylor Swift. Maybe not in cake form, though.
There were some unbelievable designs, I have to say.
You really are across this.
Yeah, no, I didn't get. I wanted to. I saw it on TV yesterday. I thought I would love to be there, but I thought no, I can't bail out on GB News at this stage.
Oh, well, we appreciate
cake,
that.
yeah.
Thank you. Well, apparently the cake was suffering cracks in the icing around the shoulders and the hairline. The figure quite literally weak at the knees.
Well, I mean, it depends where it was made, but I mean, it's probably done a few food miles, isn't it?
Well, yes.
And who wants to be the one chopping it up?
Now I've dug into the detail. I could be tempted. It's made of marshmallow and Rice Krispies. Other cereals are available. That sounds good.
Made of,
so it's basically a giant Rice Krispie cake.
Oh, well, that's no good.
No, that's very good, actually.
Make it for you and bring it in.
No, that's no good. Now, what a proper cake. Sponge.
What would you have? What's your favourite cake?
What do you have as your life-size cake?
A life-size cake? What would it be made of? I'd like a vanilla-y sort of...
Oh, you're so boring.
Sums up his personality.
Hey!
Sorry.
Might be boring, but I've got longevity.
Yeah, true.
So I'd go for a carrot. Not that anyone's asking. I'd want a carrot with cream cheese.
Oh, I do like a carrot. I do like a carrot cake.
Yeah, there you go. That's why we're friends.
Rice Krispies is fine for me.
Yeah, you'd be happy with that, wouldn't you? Very good. Well, lemon and blueberry. What about you, Anna?
I like a carrot cake too, with the specifically cream cheese icing.
Oh, there you go. That would be the popular choice, it would seem.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Well, let us know what you think on that one if you'd be tempted. gbnews.com/you'll say. Also want to know about fireworks. Should we ban the loud ones to help animals?
As you can see, Anna Mikulova, Deputy Political Editor of the Mail on Sunday, is here in the studio because... there's a lot of politics going. Would you believe that politics is now... Elon Musk is now got involved in the farmers thing.
All people, yes.
I just find this a little bit odd. I mean, I didn't like it when Obama got involved in the Brexit thing, and actually he had more of a right to do so, I guess you could say. But I just don't like this foreign interference, even though... I agree with what Elon Musk is saying.
I actually think the opposite. I think Obama getting involved there, he didn't have a place at all because that's a government dictating to a government, whereas Elon Musk, like him or loathe him, and lots of people obviously loathe him, but he's built a fortune on his own. He's sent people into space. He revolutionised the car industry. And yet everyone hates him, which is...
Oh, I don't hate him.
A lot of people do.
I just think don't get involved in our politics.
Well, is he getting involved? It was literally one tweet. I mean, obviously, all this is in the context of he clearly has... It's not his first swipe, and it's not specifically not his first swipe at Keir Starmer. The Labour's going to be delighted at this because it's everything, you know, they'll be able to say, right, well, we're taking on the billionaires, which is exactly the narrative of Rachel Reeves' budget as well. But just to play devil's advocate, why not listen to someone that successful in business and maybe even try and attract some investment?
Well, investment would be interesting.
We are living in a more dangerous world, aren't we? I mean, how concerned should we be about food security when we're hearing reports in the papers about farmers wanting to go on strike, the NFU planning a rally in London later this month? I mean, do you think we will see a shortage of food potentially over this?
Well, I think food security is a massive issue, and I think not enough. I mean, we're also used to going to the supermarket and just seeing food from absolutely across the world, and local, you know, British farmers have been hammered so much by regulation, by the cost of it all, by the competition of cheap food from elsewhere, that I think we should be concerned. But I think what I'm not concerned about is, I mean, farmers themselves put so much into their land. I really don't think they're going to strike just for sort of to make a point because they actually love what they do.
Well, yeah, but they're talking... Well, in terms of striking, they're not going to stop the work because they can't stop the work, especially when they've got livestock involved. But if they disrupt the supply chain, which they're saying they might do, well, that's fascinating because they live on such tight margins and they will lose money. So that shows a real level of determination, doesn't
Well, I think there's going to be now, because the changes don't come in or aren't expected to come in until 2026. So now there's going to be a real, I mean, there already is, huge amounts of pressure for the Treasury to, if not reverse it, at least change the threshold at which the tax starts kicking in to, well, the figure being floated is 5 million versus this 2-3 million level.
Do you think that would happen?
I think they'd be wise to do it, frankly, because at the moment, just looking at the detail, the initial reaction is that the Treasury figures are wrong. That the Treasury has essentially misunderstood how much real farms and working family farms are worth, and it's being sold by Labour ministers to the public and voters as we're targeting the super rich, but people with 2 million... I mean, 2 million, obviously it sounds like a lot to anyone, any normal person, but it's not a lot at all when you look at land and when you look at what it gives back, and also... a farmhouse.
But it's money which you would never capitalise.
Exactly.
Especially passing it from generation to generation. You never see that money.
Yeah, and the fear is, when you look at a country like France, their tax regime, it's specifically the tax regime that has led to the direct breakup of lots and lots of estates. And again, lots of people might think that's a good thing, but actually, in the long run, it's not, because you lose the ability to scale up. So if you're a farm and you get sliced every single generation, by the end of it, you're actually just not going to be functioning, because it's economies of scale that they need to be able to actually make... I mean, we're not talking about big profits, but even a tiny profit.
Can we talk about the Tories?
Yes.
Because we're going to have a new Tory party leader by lunchtime today, and potentially a very good time for them as well, because the Tories are ahead in the polls for the first time in 3 years.
For the first time. I mean, the polls are fascinating. I don't know what you think, but I think the lack of voter allegiance right now, and the way that the voters were so intent on punishing the last government in such a clear way, for that to have turned around so quickly. And it makes... I looked at that poll, which has the Tories marginally ahead for the first time, and I just think it's nothing to do with the Tories, particularly because they're in such a mess. It's just voters are much more fickle and much more ready to give politicians of all sides a kicking. So...
I don't even know about a kicking. You know, I just think I find this poll thoroughly depressing, because what it says is, where's the enthusiasm? Because what you're saying is that Labour did very well pre-election, as you say, because people hated the Tories. And now, 3 months into a new government, people are saying, we hate the government. And that's all how it's being reflected. There's no positive enthusiasm, unless, to be honest, you're a Reform voter, where they do seem to have a positive
Yeah, and in
swing.
that poll, Reform's... the proportion of people saying they'd vote Reform seems pretty steady. Look, I think... I'm not surprised, because at the end of the day, we're coming out of a cost of living... We're still in a cost of living crisis, really. A lot of people look at their finances, their family finances, and just know nothing is going to get better for years. I mean, it's not even clear when it's going to get better. I think the fact that in the budget it was presented as some big rabbit that Rachel Reeves decided not to prolong the frozen income tax thresholds for 5. She did it a year earlier.
Yeah.
Still, it's all going to be frozen until 2028, and the fact that that's being presented as some sort of good news, it's just thoroughly depressing, especially when inflation's going to be higher than it is. So everyone's looking at it and going, right, we're all going to probably feel, if not poorer in the next few years. No one's going to feel particularly better off, and I think it's understandable that people are a bit disheartened by it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Anna, good to see you.
Thanks,
Thank you very much indeed. Remember that we've got lots of special coverage on that Tory leadership election for you today. Olivia Utley and Ben Lear will be here at 10 o'clock with a special edition of Saturday Morning Live ahead of that final result to decide who is going to be the leader of the Conservative Party. That's straight after breakfast this morning at 10.
And very interesting as well, I was reading this morning, Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick have both said that they would serve in each other's shadow cabinets.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It'd be if they get appointed, of course. It'd be
If they get appointed,
It'll be
of course,
interesting to see
yes.
what job Kemi offers Rob, because I think if she doesn't win, I'll be extremely surprised.
I'll have to
The
wait
way
and
it's
see.
looking.
11 o'clock this morning. Stay tuned, it'll be on GB News.
It will. And don't forget, we've got our poll of the day. Today we're asking, can the Tories regain seats from Labour and reform with a new leader? We'll bring you the results throughout the day, so stay tuned for that. Final results in Nana's show later on.
Yeah, and for all the latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Now, Kamala Harris could be on track to become America's first female president. That's after the latest polls say she's narrowly ahead in key swing states of Michigan, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin.
Well, she's also reported to have a lead over Donald Trump among American voters who have already cast an early ballot.
Well, Republicans are thought to be planning lawsuits if Trump loses the election.
Well, joining us live now from Birmingham is Professor in US and International Politics, Professor Scott Lucas. Good to see you this morning, Professor. And what are we to make of these polls suggesting that Kamala Harris is leading by a small margin, it must be said, but in key swing states?
I think to make the same thing of it we have for the past month. This race is a toss-up. So you have had Donald Trump, who has had a narrow advantage in some polls. You have had Kamala Harris, who has had a narrow advantage in the latest polls. I think we continue to focus on issues, which hopefully we will discuss in a moment. And then you focus on these 7 swing states. Again, a reminder, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin in the north, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada in the Sun Belt. And you're talking about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump being within 2% of each other in all 7 of those states, within 1% in 5 of those states. So I think we're going to have an all-nighter on Tuesday going into Wednesday. But my fervent hope is that whichever way this election goes, that it will be acknowledged as legitimate by the loser, who will pledge support for the winner. Because I think the important thing for America beyond this immediate election is it needs to heal. Politically, it needs to heal and find a way forward rather than looking back.
I mean, this is the problem, though, isn't it? That, as you say, is it quite literally too close to call at the moment, and yet it is unlikely that it's going to be a smooth transition.
Well, I think it's likely that Kamala Harris will accept a Donald Trump victory, just as Al Gore in the disputed 2000 election accepted that George W. Bush had won to make sure that there was unity. I am almost certain that Donald Trump will not accept a loss. Even when he won in 2016, he said the polls were rigged. That was false. Of course, famously in 2020, or infamously, he said for months that the election was illegitimate. He proved no fraud in that election. He lost more than 60 court cases, but still he called his supporters out to stop the steal, as he put it. In other words, prevent the orderly transfer of power in January 2021. And my fear is he will do it again. And again, I, respectfully, because it's great talking to you about this on GB News, you had a panel on last night that actually fed that narrative that the election would be rigged. And I'm appealing to the news media, just don't feed this narrative. There's no evidence to support it will be rigged. And it only stokes up the prospects that my native country will have violence if someone doesn't like this outcome.
And we're hearing reports as well, Professor Scott Lucas, that Republicans are planning a lawsuit if Donald Trump loses the election.
Well, they will. I mean, Donald Trump, will have lawsuits all over the place because that's what he did in 2020. But again, I have to emphasize, look at what happened to those lawsuits in 2020. In more than 60 cases, they failed. Most of them were thrown out immediately because there was absolutely no evidence. And the Supreme Court refused to protect Trump, said he had no standing to bring the case. The reason why Trump will bring these lawsuits will be just trying to find some way of winning. And it won't just be lawsuits. He will put pressure on state legislators, state governors to overturn the elections. He unsuccessfully did that last time. He'll put pressure on the U.S. government to overturn the election. He did that last time. And again, at the end of the day, he may call on supporters to take action. And that action may not be peaceful action if he decides that he has to get back to the White House despite the fact that the legitimate election has said that he has narrowly failed to do so.
I'll tell you what is extraordinary in all of this, Scott, with so much to play for on both sides. I mean, there's a massive problem with that rally of Trump's when that comedian made those comments about Puerto Rico. That could have been an open goal for the Democrats, and they've completely turned it around. I know it was President Biden who made the mistake of calling Trump supporters garbage, but they've absolutely turned it around and gave Donald Trump really an open goal.
Well, you know, the Biden stumble, and it was a horrible stumble, should never have been said, allowed the Trumpists to try to take the oxygen away from that Madison Square Garden rally. But I would say that the reverberations of that rally continue. And again, if you want to talk about issues, you know, is it acceptable, not just in that comment you highlighted, but in comments throughout that rally, to insult part of the United States, Puerto Rico, to insult Hispanic and Latino voters, even when Trump is trying to court them? Is it acceptable to insult Black voters, even when Trump is trying to win them over? Is it acceptable to win Kamala Harris, or to call Kamala Harris a prostitute or Satan or the Antichrist? Is it acceptable to threaten military action against enemies within? So I think those wider issues, you know, alongside, I think beyond Biden's stumble, those could be the ones that make the difference with tens of thousands of votes, if that's the final margin between Harris and Trump.
OK, we've got to leave it there. Professor Scott Lucas, good to talk to you, as always. Thank you very much indeed. I do find in American politics, the rhetoric and the language used is extraordinary.
Yes. And personal.
Yeah.
So far away from policy, isn't it? So often it's so personal and sometimes cruel. Let us know what you think on that. Your views welcome, gbnews.com/you'll-say.
Now, to Spain, where officials have been forced to open a temporary morgue as the death toll from the flash floods earlier this week rises to more than 200.
Well, that's as regions in the south brace for more rain this weekend.
Our reporter Sophie Reaper has the latest from Valencia.
As the death toll continues to rise here in Spain, the clean-up and recovery operation is still well underway. Here in the village of Pedralba on the outskirts of Valencia, the Civil Guard continue to try and rescue and recover bodies from this river here behind us. We've seen them up in the helicopter attempting to find people who may have gotten caught up in the flash flooding. We've also seen people pouring in across this one bridge, trying to do what they can to help the people of Pedralba who have suffered much devastation as a result of this natural disaster. We spoke to one British expat who's trying to do her bit.
It's a clean-up operation. The whole community's been trying to help each other. Expats, Germans, British, Dutch, the Spanish, we've all pulled together. We've been taking donations into the village to try and help, donations of food. Friends have been cooking, clothes, just doing whatever we can to help each other. I mean, some people are still stuck and can't get out of their properties. We've all been trying to contact each other whenever we can, just checking in on each other. Is there anything we can help you with? So yeah, it's been a fantastic community spirit at the moment.
This is a clean-up operation that is going to take weeks, months, if not years. You can see here behind me the utter decimation of the town of Pedralba, the river that has been completely washed over. We were told by one local that this got to over 20 metres high, completely covering this bridge. You can see buildings have been completely wrecked by the floodwaters, vehicles left completely ruined, and people, local people, have been left without power, without water, without food. And that is just the start of the situation here in Spain as that clean-up and rescue operation continues.
Absolutely terrible.
Absolutely terrible. And we're hearing reports this morning that 2,000 people are missing in Spain following those flash floods because emergency services can't get to those rural areas, those cut-off areas. So the death toll is currently 200. But it could be much higher.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope
not. Right, let's get a check on the weather for you over here with Alex.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office on this Saturday morning. Quite a calm weekend ahead, and with that, a fair bit of cloud around as well. That cloud will keep things mild, but it is also going to bring some spots of rain. Most places will stay often dry, but like I said, a bit of rain coming and going. Nonetheless, it should be pretty light if you do see any at all. That cloud will make it feel a bit mild at times, with temperatures actually peaking around 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but the lack of sunshine means it's not going to feel especially warm at all. As we go through into this evening, and we stick with the largely cloudy but mild theme, which is relatively good news if you're heading to any fireworks displays. For most, it is going to stay pretty calm. Just do be aware across the north of Scotland, the winds will be strengthening here, so turning quite blustery. But further south, for many, it's going to stay pretty calm. Still the chance of some spots of rain, but they're still going to be pretty light if you do see any rain, so don't worry too much. And with the cloud, temperatures not dropping a huge amount, but again, towards the south coast of England, here it could turn a little bit breezy as well. Overnight, most places are going to stay fairly cloudy. Some breaks in the cloud, though, over East Anglia, maybe central parts of England, could allow for temperatures to dip a little bit more than elsewhere, so a slightly fresher feel. Perhaps some mist and fog patches developing, and also across eastern parts of Scotland could turn a little bit chilly here, perhaps a touch of frost. Otherwise, a mild start for many of us tomorrow morning. As we go through the day itself, again, the cloud may be thick enough for some rain, perhaps in the southwest, some outbreaks of rain moving through, also across parts of Northern Ireland, and even elsewhere, 1 or 2 spots can't be ruled out. But I think for many, it may be a slightly brighter day than today, a greater chance of seeing some sunshine, especially towards the north and east of Scotland, and temperatures once more, well, on the mild side for the time of year. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Oh dear, now it's November, and as our thoughts turn to the festive season, would you like to win your celebrations this year? Because it could be on us, couldn't it, Stephen?
Yes, it could be. There's lots to win. Here's how you can do it.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's 20,000 and...
Loads of you getting in touch on fireworks. It's a mixed bag. Angela, I can't agree with you, Angela. She says fireworks should be in well-advertised public displays only.
I agree, Angela.
She says they are a menace and danger in hands of people, and no care is taken for vulnerable people and animals. Many are terrified. They also harm the environment. They should be banned altogether.
I don't think there should be a ban, but I do think it's a good idea that you just do them at displays, because I get nervous with the people doing it in gardens.
I love
teenagers buying fireworks.
I love doing it in the garden. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Chris says, as a pet owner, my dog takes the horrors and shakes when fireworks go off during the day, sometimes 3 weeks early when nobody's expecting it. If he's off the lead, he'll bolt for home, which is dangerous, as of course there are roads to cross. Don't ban the loud fireworks, just limit the dates that they can be used. Keep it predictable for pets and for PTSD sufferers.
Yeah, see, that makes a lot of sense.
That's common sense, isn't
That
it?
I really agree with. Clark says they shouldn't ban or limit fireworks, but I would love to see a decibel limit on modified cars and loud motorcycles.
Jenny says, I worked as a veterinary nurse for 10 years, and the number of dogs and cats that need sedatives over the 2-week bonfire period here in Lewis is huge. Most pet owners do whatever they can to reduce the anxiety and the stress on their pets, music, TV, talking to them, but it's so sad and unnecessary. Many have the only option is to sedate them.
Yeah, well, it's a mixed set of views there. Keep your thoughts coming through. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Still to come, more on the crisis facing farming families post-budget. We'll be talking about that next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
It seems that the younger generation's interest in literature is waning. Academics argue that educational policies have failed to encourage reading for pleasure, contributing to declining numbers of English literature students and a shift towards young adult books rather than classic novels. According to 2023 figures from the National Literacy Trust, the number of 8 to 18-year-olds who say they enjoy reading has sunk to its lowest level for almost 20 years, with a quarter fewer reading each day over that same time period. To share more with us about this topic, I'm joined now by the journalist Charlotte Lytton. Charlotte, welcome back. Lovely to talk to you again. Tell us your perspective on this issue. What is happening?
Well, speaking to academics, we can't deny, it seems, that there is a big problem here, and it starts right at school. As you read there, young children simply don't enjoy reading for pleasure as they did before. We can't deny that is also a massive part because of smartphones, because kids now are faced with all of these things vying for their attention. They just don't have to sit down and entertain themselves with a long book and nothing else as they did before. As we see from those figures with people going to study humanities at university, the decline is just going all the way because people simply are not interested in reading for pleasure as they were.
Do you get any feeling that education policy or that teachers are taking steps to counter this?
Well, there is a review of the curriculum going ahead right now, but school is a huge part of it. One of the things that has come up in this conversation is whether teachers now are dealing with crowd control, which means they can't simply encourage reading for pleasure because they're simply trying to get a hold of the students they have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
It's 7:30 now. The farmers' fury isn't going anywhere as the National Farmers Union have organised a rally to take place in London later this month.
Well, it's after the autumn budget included changes to inheritance tax for farms worth more than £1 million.
Well, let's talk to the Country Land and Business Association, which represents 28,000 farms. Their president is Victoria Vivian and joins us now. Victoria, it's great to see you. What is going on with this policy, first and foremost, do you think? Are they trying to close a loophole? Have they completely misunderstood how farming works in the UK with family farms?
Well, it's both those things, really, isn't it? This is not a tax loophole. This is a tax relief. This is a business tax relief. I think the first mistake is that they've conflated business asset with personal wealth, and they've gone after that. But the whole budget was started from the principle of taxing business and taxing business assets, and it's undermined the hard work. It's hard to express the despondency I hear around me.
What's your response to Steve Reed, Environment Secretary, writing in The Telegraph today, saying he's sick and tired of seeing our public services crumble while the rich and wealthy buy up huge estates, robbing young farmers of their dreams just to avoid paying their taxes? He says this is a scandal. And he also goes on to say it's not the very rich it's only the very rich estates that are going to be affected by this, not the small family farms like the media is suggesting. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's rot. It's absolute rot from top to bottom. There's almost no statistical proof of this large-scale purchasing of land to conceal wealth. And were it to be happening, the Treasury has it within its power to close that loophole. They could increase the active farmer status, for example, that you would need to claim the relief. Small farms, it would be a very small farm indeed if it was less than £1 million in value. Farmland is at about averaging £10,000 an acre, so that's a 100-acre farm. So this is not going to it's not going to punish the people he clearly wants to punish, nor is it going to protect the family farms, which are obviously going to be far bigger than 100 acres.
We were talking yesterday to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, who was saying, well, it is all misleading because, you know, there's the £1 million limit, but then if it's being passed from family to family, there'd be an extra £1 million on top. And look, if you did have a small inheritance tax bill, there are excellent insurance schemes to cover that out there, he says.
Did he? Well, I'm going to ashamedly admit on live television that I'm 62. It's a bit late for me to start paying into a life insurance project. You'd have to start very early for that to be worthwhile. I don't know where they're getting figures for this extra £1 million of relief. They have a Ladybird book of farming in their minds, which has, you know, a family which has a spouse and a primary farm owner who are going to conflate their income tax allowance, and that will help with this bill. Of course, that presumes that the farm and the assets are all being passed to one person. It's really, I think it's deliberately muddying the water. This is a problem for farming as an investment for the food security of this nation. Excuse me, not just about people.
Victoria, you represent 28,000 farms in this country, don't you? Describe to us the sense of feeling about this.
Well, in the run-up to the to the budget, obviously we had assurances that agricultural property relief, which is a necessary tax relief for the investment in the food security of the future, was not going to be touched. We got wind of some of these changes. Leaks started to come out about capping and about small farms. But I've been inundated in the run-up to the budget, let alone after the budget, by really, really desperately concerned members. I mean, what are we going to do, Victoria? How are we going to manage this? We're going to lose the farm. I think the important thing for everybody to understand is these are complex 21st century businesses. You can't just change track. People have invested, they've worked, they've borrowed money to invest in these businesses. And that hard work, that risk is now in jeopardy.
If this all stays in place, are we going to see a situation where effectively over the next, 10 or 15, 20 years, actually all family small farms are basically going to have to be sold to big business?
And that's the problem, isn't it? If you're, depending on where you set a small farm, but a family farm, if your only asset is your land and you have to pay a £2 million tax bill, you have to sell land. So inevitably, the businesses themselves become less and less viable the smaller they get. And there'll come a point also where the investment in time and energy and the well-being of your entire family seems no longer to be worthwhile, and people will walk away.
OK, Victoria Vivian from the Country Land and Business Association. Really good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. I mean, perfectly put, actually. And
yeah,
you've
really good to talk to her.
You've got to talk to the real people who are at the sharp end of this to find out what is actually going on. It seems like, on this issue at least, the government doesn't seem to have done that. No,
and actually, I think it was Ed Balls has questioned whether the Treasury have even researched this thoroughly and thought through the implications of all of this, saying that he thinks they're going to have to change their mind. They haven't thought about the implications of what this will mean. And the NFU, the National Farming Union, saying number of farms affected is double what the Treasury has predicted. So could they have a point? Let us know what you think. David's been in touch. He's a farmer. He says, let's put this into perspective. As a farmer, we watch every penny. This is over the picture of Steve Reed wearing his £400 wellies. We spend a lot of time in Wellington, which come with the steel toe caps. Therefore, I go for Dunlop wellies. Cost me about 90 quid. Labour are taking the mickey, for want of the word. How many working farmers do you think you'd see wearing £400 Wellingtons? It's disgraceful.
Yeah, none. Right, we've got the sport for you with Aidan in a couple of minutes.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Osama bin Laden issued a fatwa entitled World Front for Combat Against Jews and Crusaders and President George W. Bush talked of a crusade on terrorism. In 2010, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula sent a parcel bomb to New York. It was addressed to Reginald of Chatillon. The addressee had died at the hands of Saladin in 1187. Those facts suggest that the long history of struggle between Christendom and Islamic caliphates remains relevant, at least to some militant Islamists. That being the case, perhaps we should all understand the past. General Sir Simon Mayle, a former Deputy Chief of the Defence Staff Operations, can be our teacher, particularly if we want to know in gory detail about battles to control Jerusalem, Constantinople, Vienna and the Eastern Mediterranean. His new book is called The House of War. It's an excellent read, which perhaps ought to figure in a national adult curriculum. And he joins me. But let's begin with the word crusade. What was it that drove Christians around Europe to want to cross to the Holy Land and seize Jerusalem?
Context and timing is really important to understand. It's been rather stereotyped as Christian aggression against peace-loving Muslims. The Islamic religion had burst out of the desert in the 7th century with the death of the Prophet Muhammad. And for the next nearly 400 years, had Christianity, Christendom, the Christian states absolutely on the back foot. It took the Holy Land, destroyed the Persian Empire, took the North Africa, which was Christian at the time, including Egypt, of course, took Spain all the way into Tours, Charles Martel. 100 years after the death of the Prophet, it expanded in an extraordinary state.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's sports time. Aidan McGee is here with us. Morning, Aidan.
Good morning.
And it's a big day in the Premier League today.
It is indeed. So unusually, we're seeing the top three, Arsenal, Manchester City and Liverpool, all in action on the same day. Manchester United in action tomorrow, of course, against Chelsea. Lots of questions around whether Arsenal are out of the title race now. A lot of people tipped them as their favourites back in the summer. They've been coming closer and closer every year. There was a real rebuild job similar to what is going on at Man United, or was going to have to happen at United in the next couple of years, I think. So Arsenal have been getting closer and closer. But look, they've dropped points already this season, and this league is just so brutal and unforgiving. You always know, Stephen, that unless you are right on it and winning every single game, you drop points. Manchester City, with the consistency and the attainment level they've achieved in the last 8 years, are going to be there to spring on you straight away. And that's even allowed for the fact that I think Pep Guardiola's been moaning in the last couple of days that his players are playing unwell because they've got such an injury list, and Jack Grealish is out, Doku is out, Gvardiol is out, Oscar Bob and Rodri are out for long term as well. So they've got all these kinds of injuries going on. And I just think Liverpool might be the ones to take advantage. They have been a bit of a surprise this season. We just assumed, didn't we, that when Jurgen Klopp left in the summer that there'd be a period of consolidation and maybe just not quite at the level while the new manager readjusts. The evidence so far is he's taken them even further than Klopp was taking them at the end of last season. Then they went. Don't forget, they got 80-odd points last season, so they went quite close. And I think they're in a good position to go for it again. Of course, they got a few contract issues later in the season with Trent Alexander-Arnold possibly going to Real Madrid. Mo Salah may go as well. But it's shaping up into a decent race at the very least.
I tell you what I do like. I like an underdog.
Yeah.
I like an underdog. I like it when a minnow...
That's why you like me, isn't it?
Well, no way. Tamworth
Yeah, it's 14 miles outside Birmingham. Been there many times. Got a friend who lives there, actually. He's technically in Staffordshire, I believe. But they put up a great surprise last night by beating Huddersfield, who are 57 places above them in the pyramid. And own goal just early in the second half by Chris Maxwell. Quite unfortunate on his part. But Huddersfield have been going for promotion in League One. They're in the Premier League, 4 or 5 years ago. So it's a hell of an upset for Tamworth, who, to my knowledge, don't have any recent FA Cup pedigree. Been a bit controversial this year because they've abolished replays. So what it means is that if the small club goes to a big club and gets a draw, then in theory they'd go back to the big club and get half the gate receipts, and that might keep them going for 5 years. But on a one-off basis, you really have to do it just in one sitting, as it were. But we've got an interesting game today. Bristol Rovers against Weston-super-Mare, two brothers facing each other. This is what they call the romance of the Cup. Kieran plays for Weston-super-Mare. He is 29 years old, he's a carpenter, and his brother Luke is a professional, plays at Bristol Rovers, and he said it's the only match where their mum and dad is probably going to cheer for both teams if they score.
Oh, that's nice.
Right, Aidan, there we are, out of time. And I don't even have time to talk about Tom Tonks.
Out of time, that was an R.E.M. album.
Well,
It was.
Never knew that. Never knew that. Anyway, we're going through the papers in a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail now, Josh, and pub landlords have to worry about more than the optics when it comes to offensive banter,
Yeah,
it
this
seems.
is a really big story and important. Pub landlords could have to become banter cops to stop themselves being sued by staff offended by comments from customers under workers' rights reform. So, Labour, when they were part of their election process, they were like, we're going to reform workers' rights, and that all sounds good on paper, but there were issues in terms of how might it affect employees and fear from employees costing them more money. One of these things that they're sort of pushing through, though, is that in the Equality Act of 2010, part of the issue was that if you were offended at work or someone said something sexist or racist, something that affected you, the employer had to take some sort of, they had three chances to kind of take action.
Yeah.
Now, the employer should have taken action already. So employees can sue employers. Now, this has a big impact on us because we're comics and we perform in venues. And if some of the bar staff hear a joke that they don't like, then they can sue their employer, potentially, under this legislation.
So it's not punters?
Well, also, it could be like you're at a bar and some bloke is like, oh, I like that top, or whatever. That's not good behaviour. But the point is now that employee could sue their employer.
So, because, I mean, the sort of scenario I was imagining was that a barmaid was being maybe sexually harassed or
That's
something.
what they're focusing in this article, but other articles have gone down the free speech route.
OK.
And also venues and universities having lectures. We saw it at, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival and Sadowitz. He had a show cancelled not because of any punters, but because two of the 18-year-olds were working. They were upset by his
There was
wedding.
a bar in Brighton, wasn't there? There was a story we covered a few weeks ago. A bar in Brighton threw some people out because...
exactly. They had turfs on the...
turfs. Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Now, at 7:47, I know you're all asking, how do you feel your Sunday morning after tuning into breakfast? Well, do not fear, because Camilla Tominey has you covered from 9:30 with your dose of weekend politics.
Well, joining us now...
Stephanie Tetchy was reading it.
I know, I was having my practice.
Well, as you can see, we're joined by journalist and broadcaster Stephanie Tetchy and the political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Morning, you two.
Morning.
And Kevin, Tories inching ahead in the polls after Labour have been hit by the budget backlash.
Yeah, so we'll get the new Tory leader this morning, so I had a bit of a fillip for them as they start their new job. We all expected it to be Kemi Badenoch, but you never know. There might be a surprise, but it would be a big surprise if it wasn't. Now, it's only one poll, and the election is years and years away, but it's a bit of a remarkable turnaround, really, from, you think, how much of a hammer in the
But it's not a poll to say the Tories are good, is it? It's a poll to say how bad the government's been.
Yeah, because the Tories have done nothing, since the election. Really, they've been in the middle of a leadership contest, so it's not as if they've put forward any great plans for the future, because that'll be up to the new leader. But yeah, it's more a response to how Labour have done. And I think it's safe to say that they've not had the best start to time in office. They've still got a big majority. It would take a massive effort for the Tories to come back in one election, but you never know. Stranger things have happened, but yeah, it's not bad news for the new leader, but they've still got a huge job, whoever wins.
Have it suggest that the Tories have made a mistake not having the leader in place for the budget?
Well, a lot of Tories that you speak to have criticised the length of the campaign. I mean, 4 months is a long old election campaign. But yeah, potentially, it was a bit weird that, for instance, Rishi Sunak responded to the budget
a couple
of days ago.
Yeah, he was very strong.
He did well, but now he's out the door.
He went out with a bang.
2 days later. It's a little bit strange. It's a little bit strange, but yeah, I think one thing they've done well actually is they've managed to hold the party together remarkably well, better than most people expected, really. You think they had a terrible result, obviously, on July the 4th. They went straight into a leadership election. It would have been very easy for them to rip themselves to bits, and they haven't. They've managed to hold it together just about. But, as I say, whoever wins has still got a massive task ahead.
All right, let's move from our politics to politics stateside, Steph, because we've got the presidential election on Tuesday. Now, the Sun pitching celebrity endorsements as a bit of a sort of flailing attempt to get support for Kamala Harris.
Well, you can't deny Kamala Harris has had star power during her campaign. She's brought out Beyonce, Taylor Swift, who supported her online, and now J-Lo has got involved and said, look, vote for Kamala, give America the Hollywood ending that we deserve. I love all things celebrity, but when it comes to, politics and celebrities, I feel like it's a false sense of security because I think people see all the celebrities coming out and they think Kamala's definitely going to win, and that's not the case at all, because more than likely she will get the popular vote, as the Democrats tend to do, but it's more about the electoral votes, college votes here. But I think she has needed that star power because it gets young people paying attention, and these people, whether you like celebrities or not, they do have influence.
I mean, the important thing, I guess, with Lopez, she's from Puerto Rico.
She is,
which
and
obviously has been in the headlines.
Obviously, we had that distasteful remark from the comedian earlier this week who said that Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage. And I think, that, for me, if Trump does lose it, I would not be surprised, is because the Latino vote will go towards Harris. It's very wrong timing, and I think J-Lo, who is Puerto Rican, she just found it distasteful.
Yeah, and she capitalised on that, didn't she?
She did.
You can't spell America
without Rican.
That was a great line.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, I'm a bit sceptical as to how influential celebrity endorsements are.
Yeah.
I remember, I'm old enough to remember just about in the 80s when lots of celebrities, musicians came out for Labour during the 1980s at elections, and it made not a blind bit of difference. In fact, sometimes it can be counterproductive because a lot of people just don't like being told what to do by rich and famous actors and actresses.
But they do. I mean, certainly states. I mean, of course, we've had Elon Musk come out for Trump.
Yeah. And he's been paying voters.
Yes. Well, yes. There's been this $1 million a day deal thing.
So we won't have long to find out. But I think regardless, it's going to be incredibly tight. Isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is.
Kevin, should we have a look at The Express, also front page of The Telegraph today? Reform UK are urging the Prime Minister to come clean over the social impact of immigration.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe not that much of a surprise, obviously, that Reform are launching this, something of a campaign, really. All the Reform MPs have signed a letter to the Prime Minister calling for an end to the deliberate policy of mass, uncontrolled legal immigration. They say that the data over the impact, the economic impact, the impact on the criminal justice system of immigration is being suppressed. Now, obviously, this is the issue, really, for Reform and for Reform voters. So I guess it will play well with their base. I'm not sure whether it will attract many swing voters, but, you know, it is an issue. And Labour have said that they will reduce migration and they'll be judged on that.
Talking of swing voters, do you fancy a bit on the side, Doreen?
Doreen?
Well, this is a headline in the Daily Star about...
really?
Couples who want a bit on the side.
Oh, my gosh, that's interesting. Yeah, in the Star today, it's saying 23% of men are keen on an extra lover, and I'm not surprised because what is... I'm not.
Oh, I don't like that.
What's the ratio? I think it's like 4 women to 1 man in the world. So it's...
Is it really?
Yeah, there's more women than men in the world. So, you know, there's more to go around.
But it was never true.
But what I find surprising is how can men juggle between having a main lover and a bit on the side? It always baffles me how they can juggle between the two.
multitaskers,
They're
Too
not
much effort.
multitaskers.
We're not good at multitasking. That's very true. No.
Well, if they want to do that, they're not in love.
No, they're not.
Quite.
Well, you know, one guy that I went on a date with one time told me that... Oh, here we go. He told me that the reason why men have several women is because they like different varieties. So they have one woman who's a good cook, the next woman might be aesthetically beautiful, the other woman could be good with sports. They just like variety in life. He said that's why men have so many different women. Of course, he's not my boyfriend because I did not like that rhetoric.
And it ended up with that comment.
Strange thing to say on a date.
It was.
It's not a bizarre line of conversation.
Weirdo stuff.
Very weird.
Right, thanks both very much indeed. We'll see you later on.
Excellent insight, Seth.
You're getting the
Look
tea?
at the weather with Alex.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office on this Saturday morning. Quite a calm weekend ahead, and with that, a fair bit of cloud around as well. That cloud will keep things mild, but it is also going to bring some spots of rain. Most places will stay often dry, but like I said, a bit of rain coming and going. Nonetheless, it should be pretty light if you do see any at all. That cloud will make it feel a bit mild at times, with temperatures actually peaking around 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but the lack of sunshine means it's not going to feel especially warm at all. As we go through into this evening, and we stick with the largely cloudy but mild theme, which is relatively good news if you're heading to any fireworks displays. For most, it is going to stay pretty calm. Just do be aware across the north of Scotland, the winds will be strengthening here, so turning quite blustery. But further south, for many, it's going to stay pretty calm. Still the chance of some spots of rain, but they're still going to be pretty light if you do see any rain, so don't worry too much. And with the cloud, temperatures not dropping a huge amount. But again, towards the south coast of England, here it could turn a little bit breezy as well. Overnight, most places are going to stay fairly cloudy. Some breaks in the cloud, though, over East Anglia, maybe central parts of England, could allow for temperatures to dip a little bit more than elsewhere, so a slightly fresher feel. Perhaps some mist and fog patches developing, and also across eastern parts of Scotland could turn a little bit chilly here, perhaps a touch of frost. Otherwise, a mild start for many of us tomorrow morning. As we go through the day itself, again, the cloud may be thick enough for some rain, perhaps in the southwest, some outbreaks of rain moving through, also across parts of Northern Ireland, and even elsewhere, 1 or 2 spots can't be ruled out. But I think for many, it may be a slightly brighter day than today, a greater chance of seeing some sunshine, especially towards the north and east of Scotland, and temperatures once more, well, on the mild side for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
National Trust Director General has said something rather curious. She's admitted that 70% of the charity's staff are Union Jack-hating progressive activists. Yes, this was speaking at a Labour Party fringe event. The boss of the charity, Hilary McGrady, acknowledged that there was a gap between her staff's views and the views held by the wider public. So was she being honest? Joining me now to discuss this is historian and broadcaster Rafe Hadel-Mankoo, who I believe is with me. Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Can this be true?
The founders of the National Trust and later figures involved in it, like my hero James Lees Milne, were really motivated by love of nation. But I think that love of nation in the Trust has become actively, national self-loathing. And that's really the state of modern Britain. And with the Trust, what we've done is we've actually entrusted our national heritage to those people who actually actively despise our national heritage, and it's utter madness.
Have these people wanted to take over charities like the National Trust for their political ends, or is it just something that happens? Is it just the type of people who work in charities?
This has been part of the long march through the institutions, that people need to understand that Britain is now a post-revolutionary society. So the buildings that house our institutions look the same, but the people who now run them bear no comparison to the generations who lovingly built and ran them. They are cuckoos in the nest, and we need to understand that. And of course, once you realize that, of course, it explains completely why, the National Trust and others have crudely tried to denigrate our national heroes and link them and their houses to colonialism and slavery, as they ludicrously tried to do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning to you. So, will it be Robert Jenrick or Kemi Badenoch? Well, one of them will be crowned Tory leader later this morning.
With both candidates covering their backs by pledging to work in each other's shadow cabinet.
And on the same day, a parting gift for Rishi Sunak, as a new poll reveals the Tories are more popular than Labour for the first time in 3 years. Olivia Utley has all the details for us this morning.
Yes, whoever the new Tory leader is will inherit a slightly rosier picture than we were imagining just a few months ago. Will it be Jenrick? Will it be Badenoch? The votes are in. Find out between 10 and midday. The world's richest man, Elon Musk, tells Sir Keir Starmer to leave the farmers alone. It's following the government's controversial changes to inheritance tax.
Could Kamala Harris take the keys to the White House? One poll suggesting that she is marginally ahead in key swing states.
The death toll in Spain rises to over 200 as locals brace for another bout of rain today.
And there are reports that the Mayor of London wants to power tubes using solar panels. So we'll debate this hour whether net zero is being put before common sense.
Elsewhere, Bonfire Night is nearly upon us, with one council wanting to ban loud fireworks in a bid to protect pets. We're asking this morning, is this a step too far?
Manchester United have confirmed the appointment of new head coach Ruben Amorim after paying just under £1 million to release him early from his contract. It's also a big day of autumn internationals in rugby union, and boxing legend Barry McGuigan is heading for the jungle. More later.
Hello, it's going to be a largely cloudy weekend ahead, but with that, staying pretty mild, mostly light winds and only a bit of rain around. Pretty good conditions for any fireworks displays you may be heading to. I'll have the details coming up.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I'm a celebrity thing. I know you're quite excited about Barry McGuigan going in, but I just find this whole lineup really weird.
Danny Jones from McFly. He's going in.
This is it. I don't know who they are.
I met him a few years ago.
They're quite a big band a few years ago.
Oti Mabuse.
She's a former Strictly Come Dancing
Jane
judge.
Moore, who's a columnist. I know who she is, but I mean...
I don't know who that is.
Dean McCulloch. Don't know who that is. Chalisa.
It kind of devalues it a bit when you see all
name.
these people linked with it, and then a day or so later they pulled out for various reasons. Well, usually probably money, I imagine, isn't it?
Well, probably. Alan Halsall, I know he was in.
He's from Corrie, you'd know him.
I know him,
That's about
because obviously Corrie's like a proper TV show. Maura Higgins.
Love Islander.
Yes, I remember her. Irish.
Now, this is very bizarre. The Reverend Richard Coles, who...
I think he'd be very good.
Who's, of course, he was in the Communards with Jimmy Somerville back in the 80s. Well, yeah, he was.
Don't lead me this way.
Yeah, the Communards with Jimmy Somerville
Big
and Richard
band.
Coles, and then when he decided to leave the music industry, he got ordained, and now he's sort of like a media vicar.
Yeah.
Very successful, weren't they, Communards?
Yeah, huge, huge. Well, he's made a.
I think he'd be good for camp morale, don't you think? We'll just say a prayer around the campfire.
Camp morale.
Don't you think?
Well, that's one way of putting it.
We'd come by arm around the campfire. It'd be quite nice.
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, well, some of you will get that. Anyway, so let us know what you think about the lineup. I'm a bit disappointed this year.
Yeah.
I say that. Why am I disappointed? I never watch it.
Have you ever been excited about the lineup?
I've never
of
watched
Sled,
it.
Though?
No, I've never ever watched it.
Anyway, let us know what you think.
Better things to do.
gbnews.com/yours. You'll have a view on that. And you'll have a view on the next story as well, won't you?
Yes, something you will want to watch, which is getting finally the result of Tory party leadership. Kemi Badenoch or Robert Jenrick, which will it be taking the reins from Rishi Sunak later this morning after that 4-month battle for the job?
Well, the winner will face a daunting task of rebuilding the party as both candidates pledge to serve in each other's shadow cabinets.
It might not be quite so dire an inheritance for them, though, because a new poll has put the Tories ahead of Labour for the first time in 3 years. And just a few months after Labour won the election? It's extraordinary.
It really is. Well, joining us now is GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley. Good to see you this morning, Olivia. And I can't believe the day is finally here after 4 months of campaigning. Just a few hours to go now until we find out who'll be the new Tory party leader and leader of the opposition.
Well, it has dragged on for a really, really long time now. We're speaking to lots of Conservative MPs, including some of the candidates at party conference, who would have really liked to have got that result in before the budget so that the new leader could respond to the budget. That didn't happen, but it may in fact be a blessing in disguise, because in the last few days, the Conservatives have actually soared in the polls. Now, that's probably not really a result of the Conservatives being particularly popular, but because Labour's budget did not go down well at all with the public and also with the media. We've had sort of 3 or 4 days of very, very negative headlines here. So this is an opportunity for whichever of them gets elected as Tory leader. It sounds as though turnout was actually quite high. There were rumours that it was going to be low. Of course, this is the first time in 14 years that the Tory leader will not be Prime Minister, so perhaps turnout won't be quite as high as in previous years. Kemi Badenoch has been leading pretty much solidly on the Conservative Home poll. That's the most sort of respected polling of that 100,000 or so Conservative members. But because the number of voters is so small, and also they're all sort of moving in the same circles. Lots of them read the Telegraph. You know, one article in the Telegraph we've seen before has managed to sway one of these elections one way or the other. So it's looking as though it's sort of Badenoch's to lose for now, but it's all very febrile.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, though, isn't it? Because in some respects it is very important. You know, the Conservatives could well form the next government. We just don't know. They are the official opposition. And yet we're still at a point, aren't we, after the last couple of years, where a lot of people are just going to say, I don't care.
Well, exactly, and there are only 122 Conservative MPs. I was really noticing in the House of Commons on Wednesday just how sort of subdued the cries from the Conservative benches sound, and that's purely because there are so few of them. That said, in normal times, if a Prime Minister were to win the sort of victory that Keir Starmer won, just 3 seats off the victory that Tony Blair won back in 1997, yes, you would think the opposition would be totally irrelevant for the next 5 years. But Labour is really so unpopular now, and Keir Starmer himself doesn't have that kind of... He didn't come to power on this wave of momentum like Tony Blair did back in 1997. So, you know, it could be that the received wisdom that this is going to be a 2-term office for Keir Starmer actually turns out to be wrong. And in that case, interest in the Conservative Party will hype up a bit.
Whoever wins this, though, has a huge challenge ahead of them to actually unite the party There's only 121 MPs left to do so.
There are. It feels a little bit as though during this very, very long, drawn-out debate, the Conservatives have begun to realise how important it is not to get embroiled in that sort of infighting that we've seen as a feature of the party for such a long time now. I mean, definitely back to the days of Boris Johnson and before that, really, too. But in a sign of that perhaps unity to come, Kemi Badenoch has pledged to serve in Robert Jenrick's cabinet if he wins, shadow cabinet, and Jenrick has pledged to serve in Kemi Badenoch's shadow cabinet if he wins. Both of them, too, have promised roles to all of the 5 leadership candidates, which is something that we've never seen before. So it does feel as though a bit of the heat has gone out of this debate, and they were very careful not to sort of insult each other. Their backers weren't sort of briefing against each other. So it's been a kinder contest than in previous years. I think they've learned the hard way that they just can't afford the kind of infighting that we've seen in previous years.
No, but isn't it fascinating when you look at the bigger political picture, as you mentioned, with the government being so unpopular just after an election, which is extraordinary. I mean, it's almost hard to believe, but it wasn't Tony Blair's government the only Labour government ever to serve more than one term, which seemed, and I remember thinking at the time, what an extraordinary thing. But I mean, I was born in 74, and of course Thatcher was in 79, so I don't remember any previous Labour government before Tony Blair. And now you begin to see it. How someone who can win such a huge majority and several months in, a matter of weeks in, they're trailing in the polls.
Well, absolutely. I find it really interesting. I do think that the sort of electoral dynamics in this country are changing quite a lot because, you know, we had Margaret Thatcher, who had sort of 14 years in power. Then we had Tony Blair, who, with Gordon Brown, had about 14 years in power as well. Then we've had the Conservatives with 14 years in power. But I don't think we'll be getting the same thing this time round because it felt, even during the election campaign, as though Keir Starmer's support was very, very wide, but perhaps not that deep. And I think what he's really struggling with at the moment is that he's got this sort of coalition of voters, and it's a very, very broad coalition because of the size of the majority. Urban voters, rural voters, young voters, old voters, etc., etc. And trying to hold that together is really, really difficult for him, as we've seen with this farmers' row in the last few days. It's sort of trying to buy off one group and keep another happy, and that is a very, very delicate balance to strike. And at the moment, anyway, and of course we have a long, long way to go, but it doesn't seem to be going too well.
No, it doesn't, does it? Olivia, thank you very much indeed.
And you're going to have lots of Olivia this morning. It's a big treat. Yes, from 10 o'clock, Olivia and Ben Leo are going to bring you a special edition of Saturday Morning Live ahead of the final results to decide the next leader of the Conservative Party. That's straight after us this morning. And we should hear the result, Olivia, at about 11
o'clock. That's what we're expecting.
This morning, so do stay tuned.
There you go. Also, we've got our poll of the day today, and we're asking, in the light of that poll putting the Tories in the lead, can Tories regain seats from Labour and, crucially, reform when they have a new leader? We'll bring the results live throughout the day, with final results in Nana's show this afternoon.
Yes, and for all the latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Now, Elon Musk has taken a very big swipe at Keir Starmer, demanding he leaves farmers alone following the government's budget.
Yes, posting on X, Elon Musk dubbed the tax raid on farmers wrong, adding extra pressure on the Treasury to U-turn.
Of course, they've clashed before, these two. The entrepreneur hitting out at Keir Starmer's handling of the summer riots. That's when he called him two-tier Keir.
Well, earlier we spoke to President of the Country Land and Business Association, Victoria Vivian.
Inflated business asset with personal wealth, and they've gone after that. But the whole budget was started from the principle of taxing business and taxing business assets, and it's undermined the hard work. It's hard to express the despondency I hear around me.
What's your response to Steve Reed, Environment Secretary, writing in The Telegraph today, saying he's sick and tired of seeing our public services crumble while the rich and wealthy buy up huge estates, robbing young farmers of their dreams just to avoid paying their taxes? He says this is a scandal. And he also goes on to say it's not the very rich it's only the very rich estates that are going to be affected by this, not the small family farms like the media is suggesting. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's rot. It's absolute rot from top to bottom. There's almost no statistical proof of this large-scale purchasing of land to conceal wealth. And were it to be happening, the Treasury has it within its power to close that loophole. They could increase the active farmer status, for example, that you would need to claim the relief. Small farms, it would be a very small farm indeed if it was less than £1 million in value. Farmland is at about averaging £10,000 an acre, so that's a 100-acre farm. So this is not going to it's not going to punish the people he clearly wants to punish, nor is it going to protect the family farms, which are obviously going to be far bigger than 100 acres.
We were talking yesterday to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, who was saying, well, it is all misleading because, there's the £1 million limit, but then if it's being passed from family to family, there'd be an extra £1 million on top. And look, if you did have a small inheritance tax bill, there are excellent insurance schemes to cover that out there, he says.
Did he? Well, I'm going to ashamedly admit on live television that I'm 62. It's a bit late for me to start paying into a life insurance project. You'd have to start very early for that to be worthwhile. I don't know where they're getting figures for this extra £1 million of relief. They have a Ladybird book of farming in their minds, which has, a family which has a spouse and a primary farm owner who are going to conflate their income tax allowance, and that will help with this bill. Of course, that presumes that the farm and the assets are all being passed to one person. It's really, I think it's deliberately muddying the water. This is a problem for farming as an investment for the food security of this nation. Excuse me, not just about people.
That was Victoria Vivian speaking to us earlier. Julie's been in touch on Victoria Vivian, saying she speaks so much sense this morning about the farmer's tax. She's painting a very real picture of farming today.
Interesting. She's talking about the size of farms. £1 million of land is about 100 hectares, 100 acres, not hectares. But of course, that doesn't include the farmhouse.
No.
As well, which all has to go in, plus equipment and all the rest of it, which are going to add up to a lot. The average UK farm is 217 acres, 88 hectares. So that already puts it just on the land at £2.2, £2.3 million, plus the house, plus the equipment, plus livestock, if you've got any. So actually, it's going to drag so many people into this.
Majority, by the sounds of things.
The vast majority, yeah.
John says farming is also suffering, like many industries, from the high cost of energy, thanks to politicians. The attack on farmers is about as low as you can get, and the issue needs a major rethink, he says.
Interesting, isn't it? On fireworks, Mike says, my dogs hate them. One of my dogs shakes with fear. Well, is Bonfire Night getting a bit too much? If you have pets that don't like it, then obviously it is really problematic. If you don't have pets or your pets are fine, maybe you think, wonder what all the fuss is about.
Well, you're not alone. A Labour councillor in St Albans is calling to ban noisy fireworks.
But what about people just enjoying it? And also the big displays often raise a lot of money for charity, so they could be affected by all of this as well. Will Hollis has all the details.
A spectacle across the skyline. Bonfire Night arrives with a bang, but for how much longer? Like hundreds of towns and cities across the UK, St Albans in Hertfordshire goes big during bonfire season. But Councillor Mike Hobday hopes to drop the boom from next year's fireworks display and beyond.
We all know that the noisiest fireworks are bad for our pet cats and dogs, they're bad for our livestock and horses, and we know that they're bad for our military veterans if they suffer from PTSD. So it's time we move to quieter fireworks.
At a St Albans District Council meeting, the Labour councillor set a motion to ban fireworks louder than 90 decibels. Rockets and large displays reach 170.
The proposal is to ban noisy fireworks on council-owned land like here at Verulamium Park, where an event is held every year. But some people fear that restrictions could put the display at risk.
I like fireworks that are really noisy. I like to feel, when it pops, you kind of feel it. The harm it does on sort of vulnerable people and dogs and children, I think especially in a kind of local area, we don't really need that.
I think the noise is part of the actual event as well, and the bangs and everything else, and it just makes sense to me that it's part of that.
The RSPCA says loud fireworks can be harmful to wildlife. Liberal Democrat leader of the council, Paul Decourt, pushed back, warning that a ban would encourage more home displays, triggering wider disturbance.
We may well find that there was not only much less money raised for those extremely good causes, but also an increase in the disturbance to animal welfare that people have raised.
A briefing given to councillors suggests quieter fireworks could put charity displays like the ones organised by St Albans Cathedral at risk.
There's no reason to think that quieter fireworks are any less attractive to paying customers than noisy fireworks. And they have the great advantage that they're better for animal welfare.
As fireworks light the sky before November 5th, will the bang of Bonfire Night soon go out with a whimper? Will Hollis, GB News, St Albans.
Well, joining us now is Managing Director at Fantastic Fireworks, John Culverhouse. Good to see you this morning, John. What do you make of this call for loud fireworks to be banned?
Well, it's, we're all sympathetic to loud fireworks, noisy fireworks upsetting people. That's the last thing we want to see. And we do put on quiet fireworks. We get a lot of increasing demand for organisations saying, can we keep the noise down this year? But in our experience, where you put on quiet fireworks, people say, oh, we didn't like those. We like the bangs. We like the noise, like one of your previous people just said. It's all part of the fun of Bonfire Night, the loud bangs. And if you emasculate it down to 90 decibels, that's the level of sound of a lawnmower. And that really is not going to work on Bonfire Night because it has been tried before. We have put on quiet displays, and I had an email yesterday actually from an organisation saying the kids didn't like the noise, the quiet fireworks. We want the noise back next year. So, you've got to be careful what you wish for, because as one of the leader, the Lib Dem leader of St Albans Council said, if you put on a quiet fireworks display and people basically vote with their feet, all that's going to happen is that a lot less money is going to be raised for local charities. I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of pounds in St Albans. Incidentally, we've been doing the St Albans firework display now for 35 years, and this is the first time this issue has been raised. So for 35 years, we've had amazing displays in St Albans, and all of a sudden, the game's changed, and I don't quite get that. But as I say, you've got to be careful what you wish for, because
presumably, John, because these are explosives. So if you take out the bang, the less of a bang, the lesser of a actual display you're going to get, aren't you?
Well, absolutely. That's the real point. It's like going to a Rolling Stones concert and saying, actually, you've got to go acoustic. It's not going to work.
What would you be limited to, John? I mean, when I think of quieter fireworks, obviously I'm not an expert like you are, but I just think of Catherine wheels.
Well, there are lots of quiet fireworks out there. And, the thing about what we're talking about is these what we call mortars or shells that are the size of a tennis ball, and they go up in the sky about 500 feet, and then they explode. And that is the bang of a fireworks display, and that sound travels for quite a long way. But if you take out that explosion and you just put a load of pretty stars in, all those pretty stars drift down the sky and they look very pretty. But you can't do that on every single effect we're talking about, because people get bored with it. They want the bangs. That's all part of the thump, the emotional experience of going to a fireworks display.
As you say, John, it's not that we don't care about people who don't like it, and it's not that we don't care about pets who struggle with it, but are we getting a bit soft?
In a word, yes. I think the vocal minorities are really able to make their voices heard now through the internet and through social media, and they've got a louder voice than they had maybe 10, 20 years ago, but is that necessarily the case that because you're making allowed a case, that is it a valid case? I mean, this is a once-a-year event in St Albans. I'm sure that people will sympathise with the fact that for once a year, can we not have some fun and let people enjoy themselves? Because if you cut down the noise to the level they would like, I can tell you for sure it's not going to work.
Yeah. I tell you what, bigger the bang, the better, as far as I'm concerned, John.
Well, I'm glad you can come to my display then.
Well, just out of interest, what does it cost on average to put a display on?
Oh, yeah.
Well, usually they run into several £1,000s. So if you're having a private party or, 50 guests or so, people will spend maybe £1,000, £2,000. Wow. St Albans, because it attracts 20,000 people, is about a £20,000 show, but it raises about £40,000 for local charities. So it's an amazing event that's enjoyed by a huge number of people. And if those people stay away and they go home and they have fireworks in their back garden, again, you've got the problem then of lots of fireworks all over the place upsetting their neighbours. At least in St Albans, in Verulamium Park, it's in a city centre setting and it works brilliantly.
Yeah.
Most of St Albans actually go to it.
Yeah, sounds brilliant, I have to say. John, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, John.
I do love a decent firework. I
So
just
do I. And I think perhaps an organised display is the way to go forward. That you don't have your private displays in the garden, that you go to an event like John's, raise lots of money for local charities.
I say it's once a year in St Albans.
Once a year.
So that's it.
Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Right, let's have a look at the weather for you with Alex.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office on this Saturday morning. Quite a calm weekend ahead, and with that, a fair bit of cloud around as well. That cloud will keep things mild, but it is also going to bring some spots of rain. Most places will stay often dry, but like I said, a bit of rain coming and going. Nonetheless, it should be pretty light if you do see any at all. That cloud will make it feel a bit mild at times, with temperatures actually peaking around 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but the lack of sunshine means it's not going to feel especially warm at all. As we go through into this evening, and we stick with the largely cloudy but mild theme, which is relatively good news if you're heading to any fireworks displays. For most, it is going to stay pretty calm. Just do be aware across the north of Scotland, the winds will be strengthening here, so turning quite blustery. But further south, for many, it's going to stay pretty calm. Still the chance of some spots of rain, but they're still going to be pretty light if you do see any rain, so don't worry too much. And with the cloud, temperatures not dropping a huge amount, but again, towards the south coast of England, here it could turn a little bit breezy as well. Overnight, most places are going to stay fairly cloudy. Some breaks in the cloud, though, over East Anglia, maybe central parts of England, could allow for temperatures to dip a little bit more than elsewhere, so a slightly fresher feel. Perhaps some mist and fog patches developing, and also across eastern parts of Scotland could turn a little bit chilly here, perhaps a touch of frost. Otherwise, a mild start for many of us tomorrow morning. As we go through the day itself, again, the cloud may be thick enough for some rain, perhaps in the southwest, some outbreaks of rain moving through, also across parts of Northern Ireland, and even elsewhere, 1 or 2 spots can't be ruled out. But I think for many, it may be a slightly brighter day than today, a greater chance of seeing some sunshine, especially towards the north and east of Scotland, and temperatures once more, well, on the mild side for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We are now officially in November, which means it's almost a festive season. We're looking ahead to Christmas, aren't we? How would you like to win your celebrations on us this year? Well, you can do exactly that with our new Great British giveaway. Here are all the details that you need.
That one.
Still to come, is Sadiq Khan taking net zero too far? We're going to be talking about that next.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3pm.
We shot with the London Eye in the background, so it's quite an iconic shoot to do my cover of the Playboy magazine. So,
and you moved into the mansion for a while. Hugh called you the British Carmen Electra. You were one of his favourites, and it's renowned for its parties, of course. Over there, you must have had a few of those. Must have been wild times.
Fantastic parties, yeah. I mean, I met some incredible people. I will forever respect him and everyone at Playboy for the love and the support.
And you were on giant billboards, you were modelling for Nike, for Reebok, you're earning thousands of pounds a day.
Wow.
Absolutely like living the dream in terms of a model's lifestyle, and then things began to change.
Well, I've been living in Windsor for 4 years, and I can't get back into Windsor at the moment. The rents have gone ridiculous. I was paying $550 a month, and then the landlord just turned around one day and said I need to be paying $750. And I didn't really have a proper tenancy agreement, and I looked through it and I said, oh, can we get something in writing? And he was like, oh. So in the end, I wrote a tenancy agreement out from off the internet and I got it all signed. But then he went, if you're not going to pay the extra £250 a month, then you're going to have to move out. And I was like, well, you're going to have to give me 4 weeks. I can't just move out. I've got nowhere to go. And I think he thought he could just throw me out there and then. And he said, I've got someone that's going to move in that's going to pay £700-800 a month. So I went and got the 10, and I thought maybe this will be the way I can go for a few months or so, and it was still summer a few months back when I became homeless. So, I got the 10 and I got all the cooking equipment and what have you from the money I got from some of the jobs I did. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go and be a free spirit for a bit, and I'm gonna have to just do my own thing. And you know what, it was the biggest mental relief to be able to have my own space. I mean, that was so liberating, absolutely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 8:31 now. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has unveiled his latest net zero innovation. He quite fancies running the tube network on solar power.
Yes, the £175 million scheme would form part of TfL's wider goal, that's Transport for London's wider goal, to go 100% green by 2030. He hasn't got long, actually, has he?
No. So is he putting net zero dreams before common sense, or is it actually just a sensible way to go? Let's talk to former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, and meteorologist Jim Dale. Good to see you both this morning. Jim, what do you reckon?
Common sense. Have a look at what happened in Valencia this week, and I think we know which direction we need to be going and why we need to be doing it. The Earth is having a wobbly. Sadiq Khan is going in the right direction. We need him to move faster. We need the whole world to move faster if we don't want to see the wreckage and carnage that we've seen in Valencia and so many other places in terms of the year gone by and previous years to that. So this is just a no-brainer. What's the opposite of it? It's back to oil and fuel and coal and all the rest of it that perhaps Ben would want. I don't.
Well, Ben, what do you make of it?
Well, the first thing to say, Jim is so charged. It's only 8:20 or 8:25 on a Saturday morning. The first thing to say is energy production is not a core competency of the mayoralty. The Labour government has, in any event, declared the creation of the Great British Energy Company. The budget had £125 million towards that initiative. The country is already set on a path towards net zero, which I think is disastrous, by the way, the path that the government has set up. We can debate the climate, that's a separate issue, but the actual policy of net zero, taking us to net zero carbon emissions by 2050, is extremely damaging for the economy. So this is not a core competency of the mayoralty. The mayoralty has many other things on its hands, crime being perhaps one that one could mention where, Sadiq Khan simply hasn't done his job and would be better advised to concentrate. But also, on top of that, TfL, remember, needed a £2 billion bailout just a few years ago. And he's going to commit it to a massive capital project, which is going to require acres of expensive suburban land, because he's not going to get cheap farmland, in and around London. And if he's going further afield, which he may consider doing, you've got all the added complications of getting the electricity into the grid. This is typical Sadiq Khan. Leave aside the whole climate debate for a second, Jim. Just focus on what he's doing. He's taking energy policy into his own hands, embarking on a massive capital project where he doesn't have good track record, spending our money, being distracted from his core job. It just is Sadiq Khan all over, not doing what he was employed to do and virtue signalling at vast cost, for Londoners.
Jim?
Ben, if look, let's make this absolutely clear. The number one priority that we've got at this moment in time is going to be climate change. So net zero is a legal policy. It's the direction of travel, not just for this country, but for the world, 165 countries. He's putting this ahead of everything, and he needs to. So this has got urgency. If we don't want to see what we've seen in Valencia and other places over the period, look, this is now a crisis. Make this absolutely clear. And just by knocking the person for political reasons, which is more or less what you're doing, this needs common sense. This is the direction of travel that we need to travel for the reasons that are so obvious to more and more people, even people who denied it in the past. And I look forward to Reform UK coming onto this station and maybe debating the climate, because they've gone very, very quiet on this subject, to say the least. So let's make this absolutely clear. This is, and I know it's only 8:30 in the morning, but we need to get this in the right direction so that Khan is doing the right job, even if it's going to take a little bit of time to get there.
Ben?
So, Jim, your battle to preserve the climate the way you see it is not synonymous with government or international policy, as you point out, for net zero by 2050. They are not the same thing. The net zero policy is what governments across the globe have decided is the way they're going to tackle it. It doesn't make it right. And it certainly doesn't justify a tilt towards net zero independently by the Mayor of London, who has no competency, no authority in this area, to achieve that by 2030 at Londoners' expense, using a budget which already needed a £2 billion bailout. Sadiq Khan is all over the place. This isn't about climate change. This is about Sadiq Khan going down a rabbit hole of political virtue signalling. It is Sadiq Khan, classic Sadiq Khan. Distract from his real job by doing nonsense on the edges.
Ben, it's called leadership in a direction that we need to travel for obvious reasons, and you're missing it.
Waste of money.
All right. Well, on that point, gents, we have to leave it. Ben, Jim, thanks both very much.
Thank you.
A display of good leadership or a waste of money? Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say.
Well, London's Deputy Mayor for Environment and Energy said powering London's world-leading transport system with green energy is a clear win-win. Installing solar panels as a source of renewable energy is one of many ways organisations in London can lower their carbon footprint.
Don't go anywhere. Sport with Aidan, coming up next.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Well, drinkers have been warned about a drop in the quality of French wines after poor weather conditions hit this year's grape harvest. Winemakers across France will make 240 million fewer bottles of wine this year, the country's farming ministry said on Tuesday. So should we think of switching from French to English? I'm joined now by sommelier and founder of Inflorescence Wines, Jacinta Madison Williams. Hello, Jacinta.
Good
Lovely
morning.
to see you. First of all, let's just think about the poor French.
We should.
Has this been a fairly universal weather catastrophe for France?
It has. A kind of across the board, we're about 22% down on last year's crops, which is quite significant. I think it's like one of the 4 years over the last century that have been this low. So,
and it's affected both quality and quantity?
I would say more so quantity. There's always ways of counteracting quality. It depends if people are desperate to make wine. They can obviously push out more watered down grapes. There's been a lot of rain, if you hadn't noticed. Not only in France, we felt it here too. But lots of frost, supercell hailstorms have completely wiped out some crops. So in some cases, there's nothing to make. In other cases, it's just really watered down grapes and you want to pick earlier to make sure you're avoiding all those rains. But I would say more so it's quantity. But saying that, France is still the biggest producer of wine in the world. It might be taken over by Spain this year, but as a consumer, don't panic. We're not going to run out of wine. And we obviously have lots of lovely wine growing here now in England. So whether we do make a little jump for a bit to English wine, but there's definitely still lots out there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time for the sport with Aidan. Good morning, sir.
Good to see you.
It is 8:40. Let's have a look at what's Sporting Lisbon having to say about the fact that they're losing their man.
Well, they have also revealed how much United paid in the overall package. I think it was £8.9 million to get Ruben Amorim out of his deal, and a further £900,000, Ellie, to release him from his contract early. Now, the issue here is that when I heard this, that they were paying for an early release, I thought, well, he's great, he's joining tomorrow. Where's my pen? Sorry. I should buy better quality stuff. I thought he was arriving tomorrow because they paid nearly £1 million to get him out of his contract. And no, he's still arriving on November the 11th. So that is the early release. He was due to join on December the 1st. And that's after saying, can I join you at the end of the season? So, look, if I was a cynic, I would say, well, look, he's not exactly rushing over hot coals to get to Old Trafford, is he? Given that this is a club that needs surgery straight away. Nonetheless, he played his game last night, or he managed his game last night. Sporting Lisbon won 5-1, 10 wins in a row for them now. And he'll take charge in three games' time. So Ruud van Nistelrooy will be in the hot seat for tomorrow's game at Chelsea. And look, in terms of what they need, who knows what Man United need? It's a big job there. He's one of his future players, Diogo Dalot, a fellow Portuguese, has said it's going to be 4 or 5 times more the pressure of Sporting Lisbon. And as you almost correctly predicted yesterday, I said how many worldwide fans, and you went really close by saying 1.2 billion.
Yeah. To be fair, it's quite impressive.
Oh, very impressive. Yeah. I mean, that's twice the number of Real Madrid globally. This is a huge job, so he'll be under no illusions of that. But you probably won't know until you get into it.
Yeah. No, it's often the way.
And a classy farewell from Erik ten Hag.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, look, I'll just read the quote. It's quite normal when a departing manager, a really big club, will release a statement through either the LMA, their union, or their representatives. But he says he wishes United nothing but success in the future. And he says, thanks for always being there with the club, whether it was a game far away or a tough match at Old Trafford, your support was unshakable. Listen, it didn't go well for him, but he carried the office with dignity. And, with a bit of a fair wind, things might have turned out differently with him. But I think that things will go well for him in future at other clubs.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, really, it tickles my fancy, this. After Joe Marler said in a tweet that the hacker was ridiculous and it should be binned, which he then deleted and then since apologised for, which he just kept stum, really.
Yeah, I think so.
The New Zealand captain says, it's now a loaded gun. But Marlon isn't even going to be there for the match today.
I know, it's flat track bullying, isn't it? So he leaves the grenade in there earlier in the week, and then leaves for personal reasons. I don't want to make too much of a joke with that because it could be absolutely anything. But yeah, it does look as if he's just departed the scene, doesn't it? And England players are going to have to deal with that at 3:10 this afternoon against the mighty All Blacks, who got to a World Cup final, the last 2 World Cup finals, in fact, and they haven't lost against England since 2012. So it's a huge thing for them to have to deal with today. But let's see how far England have come. Because notwithstanding all this row about the hacker this week, I mean, it's endured for longer than the Rugby World Cup itself last year, almost. And it's still rumbling on today. And they, you know, quite rightly, they're defending what they do before matches. It's actually in the rules that they can do this. It's a cultural respect. It's laying down a challenge. And let's just hope England can respond in kindness this afternoon.
Wow.
Part of the fun, I think.
Yeah.
Scotland in action at 20-6 as well, we should say, against Fiji.
Yeah.
Fiji?
Yeah, at Murrayfield. Scotland are top side at the moment. So I expect them to win that quite comfortably.
All right.
Great.
Okay.
What else have you got for us?
Barry McGuigan.
Oh, yeah.
Going into the jungle. And I think he's going to do very well. Because I know him a little bit. Because on the day Muhammad Ali died back in 2016, I went down to his house in Faversham in Kent. And we just did a tribute. His knowledge of the sport was fantastic. He cooked me beans on toast, which was a hell of a thing, you know, for me. Because my dad idolised him back in the day. And they say never meet your heroes. And he was so nice to me. And there we are, back in 2016.
Who's that young man standing next to Barry McGuigan?
I know, it's pre-stubble days now. It's a long time ago.
Lovely, okay.
And Barry's got even less hair now. But yeah, we had a great day. And I think, you know, just seeing how he cooked, I think that alone, exactly. I think that might stand him in good stead in the jungle, and I think that he's definitely going in because we know that Ali McCoy was going to go in, but decided not to in the end. But he's now as of this morning at about 7:20, he's my tip to win. I'm a celebrity.
Oh. Right, and you're not at all biased, are you?
Not really. But the sports people tend to do quite well.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. They're built for it, aren't they?
I'd say so. Yeah.
They're resilient.
Oh.
Well, yeah.
Against adversity.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Right, Aidan, thank you.
Good to see you tomorrow.
Get off. We've got the papers heading your way in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, Georgia. Your story is incredible. Just remind us of it. You quit running in, was it 2017? Because I mean, to be quite frank, your body was knackered, you had injuries, you thought you couldn't go on anymore. But then you started running again at Parkrun in 2022. And of course, this summer at the Olympics, you won bronze.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, it has been a bit of a journey. And yeah, there was a period of time where I stopped running completely. And then Parkrun was just something I got into with my friends, my family, just local community. And I started to see the improvements that led me to get back in contact with my old coach and just worked my way back up to elite level running and got a bronze medal this summer in Paris.
Did you ever think that would happen when you were beginning to take part in parkruns again? Did you ever think you'd be winning bronze in the 1500 metres at the Olympics?
No, not at all. It would have been absolutely bonkers, I think, to think that at the time. It was just building my way up, but it was all about finding happiness in running again. And that's really what Parkrun does, I think, really well.
And can you just tell us and the audience what had happened to you in 2017?
So I had been like a good junior athlete. I had gone over to the US on a track scholarship at university, and I just experienced so many different injuries. So various stress fractures in my shins, and I just graduated and just thought there's no way I can run anymore. So took a big break, and then over the past few years, I just got back into running slowly, built it up, and Parkrun is just something that is on every Saturday. So many parks across the UK, very accessible, free. So it was just a really good way to get back into a fun but semi-level of competitive running.
The People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're going through the papers now with journalist and broadcaster Stephanie Tecci and the political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Morning, you two.
Morning.
And Stephanie, let's have a look at the Telegraph, shall we? Because what or who has been unveiled as a Bonfire Night effigy?
Ticketmaster. Kent, they're literally putting Ticketmaster up in flames for their dynamic pricing for Oasis tickets. So they've put a 36-foot effigy created by the Edenbridge Bonfire Society. There's other people who are going up in flames, including Sadiq Khan and who else? Keir Starmer as well, yeah.
But does it look anything like Ticketmaster? Is it
no.
I wouldn't say
it logo. Yeah.
This is what it looks like, by the way.
But it's got the two brothers on the
logo.
side.
They've got the logo on the tie.
Oh, right. Oh, is that
a T? The Ticketmaster T.
Yeah, I'm not
you can't
sure
really
about
see
this.
it. But it's a good likeness of Liam and Noel as little hand puppets.
Ticketmaster is holding a little Liam and a little Noel.
And then you've got the ticket coming out the tongue for £506 for the ticket.
These people got nothing better to do.
Clearly not.
I mean, who's got the time to put this together?
I think it's impressive. Speaking of someone who tried to get an Oasis ticket and didn't, so all power to them.
You want to go to Edenbridge, don't you, and both this
Try to work out how far it is.
I know, it's...
I'm happy to start the bonfire myself. If
well,
You've been burnt, quite literally, by this.
Very good.
Talking of things that cost a lot of money, Kevin, rail fares, according to the Eye, are going to increase above inflation.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing.
I wish I could look surprised.
Well, I think what annoys people, I think people wouldn't mind paying maybe a little bit extra if it meant that the trains were going to run on time, that they weren't going to be cancelled, that they were going to be a reliable service, that they weren't going to be on strike. But as we know in this country that you can't rely on the trains at all, and yet people are going to be paying through the nose. So they're going to go up by 4.6% next year, which is worth an average of £243 extra. I mean, it's a lot of money
on a
12-month season ticket. And if you've got no other option than to get the train to work, then they've kind of got you over a barrel, haven't they? Because it's the only way that you can get to work.
Yeah.
So you've got to pay it.
You're right, Kevin, because how are these services improving? All I hear is this is going up, that's going up. I'm like, OK, fair enough, you want to get money back, but tell us why we should be paying for these services if you're not improving them. The standards, for me personally, when I catch a train, seem to be getting worse and not better.
Yeah, it says here 3.5% of trains were cancelled in the latest quarter, which is close to the worst performance ever, which was 4.1% in 2014. So, it's pretty miserable if you have to rely on the trains to get to your work, And then you've got to explain to your boss why you're late, or, then you get into bother. So it's...
Can't rely on them, Steph, Prince Andrew has been cut off financially by the King.
Oh, I think people have been concentrated too much on Prince Harry and William and their fallout, but it's really about Charles and Andrew and their relations, because now it seems it's going to be His Majesty and soon-to-be pauper brother Prince Andrew, because... Pauper?
Well, he's not going to be quite a pauper, is he?
Well, Stephen, look, he's not going to be getting his £1 million personal allowance. He's no longer a working royal. So how is Prince Andrew going to be making his money?
He must have put some money aside, surely.
Well, surely that money will eventually run out.
And it's expensive to run. He's got to move to Frogmore Cottage, which sounds very nice, I'm sure, but he's got to pay for his own security, pay for the upkeep of the property. From what?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not exactly very employable either, is he? I mean, are you really going to want Prince Andrew with all that baggage representing you as an ambassador or,
job in Sainsbury's or Tesco's, whatever.
That would be...
Get on the till.
That'd be a good story.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
On the till. Well, would that be enough, though? I don't know how to pay.
Well, this is...
Well, no, he'd have to live like a normal person.
Well, this is from updates...
That's not an option, though, is it? That's the problem. I'm not against it.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be able to live as a normal person.
I don't think he will. And, you know, I think this is from Robert Hardman's updated biography on King Charles, and he's saying that this is all a move for King Charles to get Prince Andrew out of his 30-room mansion at Windsor and move into Frogmore Cottage. But it seems like what Robert Hardman has said in this book, that even from when the Queen was alive, it was how are we going to deal with the Andrew issue when it comes to his finances. So it seems like King Charles was honouring his mother's request.
Oh, dear. I don't know, it's so problematic, isn't it, all of this?
No, but would you do that to your brother, your sibling? Would you?
Yeah, well, no.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's talk.
Let's talk. If my brother was getting £1 million a year off me as a handout, and he's disgraced the family, you'd have to. I mean, you can't carry on like that.
Is £1 million a lot to the royals? Is it a lot to King Charles? No.
It's a lot of money, though, isn't it?
Living the high life too long.
I said for King Charles, £1 million is
Yeah.
not too much. But, you know, would you want to do that to your sibling?
Yeah, this question for you. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say. Thank you, you two. Let's have a look at the weather with Alex Burkle.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office on this Saturday morning. Quite a calm weekend ahead, and with that, a fair bit of cloud around as well. That cloud will keep things mild, but it is also going to bring some spots of rain. Most places will stay often dry, but like I said, a bit of rain coming and going. Nonetheless, it should be pretty light if you do see any at all. That cloud will make it feel a bit mild at times, with temperatures actually peaking around 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but the lack of sunshine means it's not going to feel especially warm at all. As we go through into this evening, and we stick with the largely cloudy but mild theme, which is relatively good news if you're heading to any fireworks displays. For most, it is going to stay pretty calm. Just do be aware across the north of Scotland, the winds will be strengthening here, so turning quite blustery. But further south, for many, it's going to stay pretty calm. Still the chance of some spots of rain, but they're still going to be pretty light if you do see any rain, so don't worry too much. And with the cloud, temperatures not dropping a huge amount. But again, towards the south coast of England, here it could turn a little bit breezy as well. Overnight, most places are going to stay fairly cloudy. Some breaks in the cloud, though, over East Anglia, maybe central parts of England, could allow for temperatures to dip a little bit more than elsewhere, so a slightly fresher feel. Perhaps some mist and fog patches developing, and also across eastern parts of Scotland could turn a little bit chilly here, perhaps a touch of frost. Otherwise, a mild start for many of us tomorrow morning. As we go through the day itself, again, the cloud may be thick enough for some rain, perhaps in the southwest, some outbreaks of rain moving through, also across parts of Northern Ireland, and even elsewhere, 1 or 2 spots can't be ruled out. But I think for many, it may be a slightly brighter day than today, a greater chance of seeing some sunshine, especially towards the north and east of Scotland, and temperatures once more, well, on the mild side for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could good luck. Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Oedipus is back in the theatre, as Stefan Kyriazis can tell me. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
A good Oedipus or a bad one?
It's a great one. It's divided the critics a little bit. So some would prefer more kind of truth to the original text, perhaps a little bit more sense of the kind of epic Greek tragedy. I mean, this is Sophocles. It's 2,500 years old, and it's still one of the best, literally, no pun, the mother of all tragedies. It's just absolutely staggering. You like that?
I did. Where and with whom?
So this one is on at the Wyndham Theatre until January the 4th. The exciting thing is Mark Strong as Oedipus, Leslie Manville as his wife, Jocasta, and it's been reframed, you'll see from the pictures, as a modern political thriller. So he is waiting for election results, general election results, you will remember. There's a clock ticking down in the background. They're at Campaign HQ. They're waiting for it to click down to zero, we increasingly know that when it hits zero, terrible truths are coming. So it's operating on two levels. He's obsessed with the truth. He says very famously, I am me. He's so proud of his sense of who he is. And of course, that's all going to be horrendously ripped away. Mark Strong is wonderful. And then when we get to the very end and the horrific final reveal, I forgot. I was so gripped in the political thriller and everything else, I actually swore under my breath in the theatre, Michael, because I just had been so engrossed, and they play very well at other mysteries going on and a family drama, that when my penny dropped, I literally was devastated, and they do it. Even the critics that haven't loved this reframing admit, the two of them, and especially at the end, it's searingly agonising. It's glorious.
2,500 years later,
yeah,
it's still absolutely visceral.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. Robert Jenrick or Kemi Badenoch? Well, one of them will be crowned Tory leader in about 2 hours.
Yes, with both candidates covering their backs by pledging to work in each other's shadow cabinet.
On the same day, there is a parting gift for Rishi Sunak as a new poll reveals the Tories are more popular than Labour for the first time in 3 years.
The world's richest man, Elon Musk, tells Sir Keir Starmer to leave the farmers alone. It's following the government's controversial changes to inheritance tax.
Could Kamala Harris take the keys to the White House? Well, one poll is suggesting that she is marginally leading in some key swing states.
The death toll in Spain rises to over 200 as locals brace for another bout of rain today.
There's a new campaign in County Antrim looking to support veterans who've fallen on hard times. We'll bring you the latest on that.
Hello, it's going to be a largely cloudy weekend ahead, but with that, staying pretty mild, mostly light winds and only a bit of rain around. Pretty good conditions for any fireworks displays you may be heading to. I'll have the details coming up.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Because we're hurtling towards Bonfire Night on Tuesday, a lot of places will be having displays this weekend. We've been debating this morning about whether, because one councillor in St Albans...
councillor in St Albans,
No, Labour.
Oh, was it Labour?
Labour, yeah. Saying there should be a restriction on how loud fireworks can be. But we talked to one guy this morning who runs these displays who said you can do quieter displays. He's done quieter displays, but people complain afterwards.
People don't like it.
Because the fireworks, as a result, are a bit more...
wishy-washy.
Yeah, wishy-washy. Well, you're not going to get the same...
No, it takes away from the experience, doesn't it? I love that when you go to a fireworks display and a huge fireworks go off and everyone goes, oh, ooh. I think it's the best sound.
Yeah, and you don't get that.
And it comes with a bang. It does.
But lots of you getting in touch concerned about pets, and I totally get that. But a lot of you saying, well, you know, our pets hate it, but why not just do it one day a year, then it'll be fine.
Yeah. And I think maybe stick to the big public events rather than private ones in your garden. I think it would be better for health and safety. It would be better in terms of timings if we just say all public events need to be finished by 8 p.m. or something. If it's getting dark at 4:30 now, 8 p.m. is plenty of time, isn't it, for a display?
I like doing my own, though.
And you'd raise lots of money for charity from these big displays.
Yeah, I still like doing my own.
Yeah.
Yeah, really like it.
Would you spend lots on fireworks?
Yeah, well...
It's quite expensive.
It is expensive. I think last time it was 50 or 60 quid, and you don't get that much for that.
Do you not?
No, but
do you do sparklers in the garden?
Yeah, you get sparklers. You've got to have your sparklers and your Catherine wheels, a load of rockets and all that sort of thing.
Oh.
Brilliant, I love it.
And your pets aren't scared of it,
They don't care. No, they really don't care.
Do you think you've exposed them to it? Do you think that's why they're so
maybe.
Do you think it's just their personalities?
Probably. Big, tough pets.
They are big, tough boys.
Everyone in the Dixon household, well, big and tough.
You are. It's very true. Let us know what you think on that one. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Now let's talk Tories, should we? Because Kemi Badenoch or Robert Jenrick, one of the two, will take over the reins from Rishi Sunak as Tory leader later this morning. 4 months they've been battling for this. It's been going on for a long time.
Certainly has, yes. The winner will face a daunting task of rebuilding the party, and both candidates have actually pledged to serve in each other's shadow cabinets.
You think it would be a bit of a sort of poison chalice, wouldn't you, the way the Tories went after the last election? However, there is a new poll today which puts the Tories ahead of Labour, not by much, but nevertheless ahead of Labour for the first time in 3 years.
Well, a few weeks ago, Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick clashed in that GB News event. They discussed the ECHR, Brexit, immigration, and, of course, their thoughts on Reform UK leader Nigel Farage.
He speaks with conviction. When people hear him speak, they believe that he understands their concerns. Some people will say, oh, you need to tack to the left, you need to tack to the right. It is not about left or right, it is about right or wrong.
Look, I think Nigel Farage is rattled. He's talking about me a lot now. He doesn't want someone to lead this party with my track record.
Let's talk to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who hosted that event, of course. I mean, it's fascinating that here we are, Chris, after all of this, and you've got to say, you've got to be straightforward with this. If Kemi Badenoch doesn't win, then it would be a real surprise, actually, when you look at all the polls.
Yes. Yes, morning Stephen, morning Ellie from central London, where we're about to see this result announced by the Tory party. I'm trying to work out how many days it's been since it started. It's 14 weeks by my count since this campaign started. I asked an aide here, Tory aide, just now, how many days it is, and he just rolled his eyes and said, I don't know, but it's been a long time, and it really has been a long time. We started out with 6 candidates to be leader: Tom Tugendhat, Mel Stride, Priti Patel, James Cleverly, of course, Robert Jenrick, and now Kemi Badenoch. Those final 2 are in the last 2 today. We'll hear the result at 11 o'clock live here on GB News. The choice between Jenrick and Badenoch is one of policies against principles. And we've heard a lot from, as you saw in that GB News event, the only event we're actually featuring the final 2 broadcast on GB News about 2 weeks ago. You have got a choice here. The members have got a choice between actual policies, serious policies, withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights, cutting net migration to thousands, not even tens of thousands, scrapping the Equality Act, the Human Rights Act, bringing back the Rwanda scheme to deal with illegal migration, against Kemi Badenoch, who's really more of a vibes candidate, talking about ideas, thoughts, principles. Renewal 2030 is her stick to the members. We'll see if they win. Kemi Badenoch is the favourite to win, Stephen, as you say, but we've been caught up before, notably with James Cleverly, who we all had, and I had, nailed on to be in the final 2, and that famously didn't happen because of the strange voting patterns of Tory MPs. So I'm not going to call it 2 hours out, but Kemi Badenoch is the favourite.
Oh, all right, Chris, thanks very much indeed. We're going to have live coverage of that, aren't we?
We are, yes, from 10 a.m. Olivia Utley and Ben Lee are going to be here with a very special edition of Saturday Morning Live. And Olivia Utley joins us now. So lots to look forward to from 10 a.m. Take us through the timeline of how this morning is going to go.
Well, it's all very exciting. They are there at this event now in central London, somewhere around WC, I think. We are hearing from Bob Blackman, who is now the chairman of the 1922 committee. We're going to hear his opening remarks at about 11 o'clock, and then about a few minutes later we will get the result of the vote. The rumour is that turnout is above 70%. Well, you'd sort of hope so. I've just been swatting up on the previous 2 elections, and it's been over 80% both in 2022 and in 2019. After we hear, we will then get a speech from the leader, and then if Jenrick wins, we expect some media rounds. If Kemi Badenoch wins, I'm not so sure we will get those media rounds. She's been pretty resistant to doing media interviews, and I think that might continue today. But either way, we will hear the speech at sort of 10 past 11. So stick around for the show. We'll have lots and lots more analysis, brushing up on all my numbers so I know exactly what's happened in all of the previous Tory leadership campaigns. Obviously, this one is very different because, for once, they're not in office.
Yeah,
no?
OK. Olivia, thank you. See you in 50 minutes. Fabulous. Right. In our poll of the day today, we're asking if the Tories can regain seats from Labour and Reform under a new leader, if there are a general election anytime soon. Interesting, the results so far, yes, 27%, no, 67%. 6% of you don't know.
Yes, we'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you keep voting and stay tuned. The final result will be announced later in Nana A Queer Show.
And if you want to take part, go to gbnews.com/poll.
Now, tech billionaire Elon Musk has taken a swipe at Sir Keir Starmer, demanding that he leaves farmers alone. It's following the government's controversial budget.
Yeah, posting on X, where else, he dubbed the tax raid on farmers wrong, adding extra pressure on the Treasury to do a U-turn.
Well, this isn't the first time the pair have clashed, of course. The entrepreneur previously hit out at Starmer's handling of the summer riots, describing him as two-tier Keir.
Yeah, well, earlier we spoke to President of the Country Land and Business Association, Victoria Vivian.
Inflated business asset with personal wealth, and they've gone after that. But the whole budget was started from the principle of taxing business and taxing business assets. And it's undermined the hard work. It's hard to express the despondency I hear around me.
What's your response to Steve Reed, Environment Secretary, writing in The Telegraph today, saying he's sick and tired of seeing our public services crumble while the rich and wealthy buy up huge estates, robbing young farmers of their dreams just to avoid paying their taxes? He says this is a scandal. And he also goes on to say it's not the very rich it's only the very rich estates that are going to be affected by this, not the small family farms like the media is suggesting. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's rot. It's absolute rot from top to bottom. There's almost no statistical proof of this large-scale purchasing of land to conceal wealth. And were it to be happening, the Treasury has it within its power to close that loophole. They could increase the active farmer status, for example, that you would need to claim the relief. Small farms, it would be a very small farm indeed if it was less than £1 million in value. Farmland is at about averaging £10,000 an acre, so that's a 100-acre farm. So this is not going to it's not going to punish the people he clearly wants to punish, nor is it going to protect the family farms, which are obviously going to be far bigger than 100 acres.
We were talking yesterday to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, who was saying, well, it is all misleading because there's the £1 million limit, but then if it's being passed from family to family, there'd be an extra £1 million on top. And look, if you did have a small inheritance tax bill, there are excellent insurance schemes to cover that out there, he says.
Did he? Well, I'm going to ashamedly admit on live television that I'm 62. It's a bit late for me to start paying into a life insurance project. You'd have to start very early for that to be worthwhile. I don't know where they're getting figures for this extra £1 million of relief. They have a Ladybird book of farming in their minds, which has, a family which has a spouse and a primary farm owner who are going to conflate their income tax allowance, and that will help with this bill. Of course, that presumes that the farm and the assets are all being passed to one person. It's really, I think it's deliberately muddying the water. This is a problem for farming as an investment for the food security of this nation. Excuse me, not just about people.
Do let us know what you think about that. We've had quite a few views through about Vivian, not Vivian, Victoria
Vivian. It's a great name.
Do you know what? I like Vivian as a name. My grandma was called Vivian.
I like the name Vivian as a name. We have that in common.
So there you go. Sorry, Victoria. But it's
Ms. Vivian to you.
It's true. I just think it's really interesting that a lot of people listen to what she says, and just think about the common sense aspect of this, which is the fact it is going to affect an awful lot of people. And how are you meant to inherit a farm and keep that land going if you have to fork out, if every generation has to fork out tens and possibly hundreds of thousands of pounds in inheritance tax every time?
And that's why some people in the farming community are just saying, well, this is the death of the family farm. That's it.
You just have to sell it.
Ed Balls, of all people, has said actually questioned the Treasury's research on this, saying that they actually looked into the implications and what this would mean for British farming. If you are a farmer affected by this, we'd love to hear from you. Love to get you on the programme, actually. So do let us know, gbnews.com/you'll say. If you'd be happy to come on the programme, we'd love to talk to you.
All right, it's 13 minutes past 9. Let's have a look at some of the other key stories this morning.
And the Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky has renewed calls for the UK and the US to allow his troops to use Western-made long-range weapons. In recent weeks, North Korea has continued to deploy more soldiers to Russia, with Defence Secretary John Healey warning of the growing alliance between North Korea and Moscow.
The drug watchdog has warned that there've been up to 10 deaths apparently linked to weight loss jabs like Ozempic. Cases of serious reactions to the drug, including nausea and vomiting, are in the thousands. I mean, that's reported as being quite common, isn't it? It comes as the General Pharmaceutical Council announced plans for additional safeguards to make sure online pharmacies are checking patient information properly.
And a royal biographer has revealed that King Charles has reportedly blocked Prince Andrew's annual allowance worth £1 million. The brothers have suffered a testy relationship since the Duke of York stepped away from public life in 2019, following revelations of Andrew's friendship with paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The Duke has always denied any wrongdoing.
Can't imagine being given £1 million a year.
By your brother. Must be
to live.
nice. Hope my brother's watching and listening.
Has he got £1 million a year to give you?
No, but if he did, I hope he'd give it to me.
Yeah.
I don't think he would.
No.
Anyway, let's have a look at the weather, shall we? With Alex Burkle.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office on this Saturday morning. Quite a calm weekend ahead, and with that, a fair bit of cloud around as well. That cloud will keep things mild, but it is also going to bring some spots of rain. Most places will stay often dry, but like I said, a bit of rain coming and going. Nonetheless, it should be pretty light if you do see any at all. That cloud will make it feel a bit mild at times, with temperatures actually peaking around 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but the lack of sunshine means it's not going to feel especially warm at all. As we go through into this evening, and we stick with the largely cloudy but mild theme, which is relatively good news if you're heading to any fireworks displays. For most, it is going to stay pretty calm. Just do be aware across the north of Scotland, the winds will be strengthening here, so turning quite blustery. But further south, for many, it's going to stay pretty calm. Still the chance of some spots of rain, but they're still going to be pretty light if you do see any rain, so don't worry too much. And with the cloud, temperatures not dropping a huge amount. But again, towards the south coast of England, here it could turn a little bit breezy as well. Overnight, most places are going to stay fairly cloudy. Some breaks in the cloud, though, over East Anglia, maybe central parts of England, could allow for temperatures to dip a little bit more than elsewhere, so a slightly fresher feel. Perhaps some mist and fog patches developing, and also across eastern parts of Scotland could turn a little bit chilly here, perhaps a touch of frost. Otherwise, a mild start for many of us tomorrow morning. As we go through the day itself, again, the cloud may be thick enough for some rain, perhaps in the southwest, some outbreaks of rain moving through, also across parts of Northern Ireland, and even elsewhere, 1 or 2 spots can't be ruled out. But I think for many, it may be a slightly brighter day than today, a greater chance of seeing some sunshine, especially towards the north and east of Scotland, and temperatures once more, well, on the mild side for the time of year. Bye-bye.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Do stay with us. Still to come, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? Find out who's the favourite to win next.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet, and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good
morning,
to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean, and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions, and looking at how we develop more circular economy programs. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, you know, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, US elections taking place next week. Polls are very, very tight at the minute. It's difficult to work out who's going to win. Impossible, actually. Earlier, we spoke to Professor of US and International Politics, Scott Lucas.
Race is a toss-up. So you have had Donald Trump, who has had a narrow advantage in some polls. You have had Kamala Harris, who has had a narrow advantage in the latest polls. I think we continue to focus on issues, which hopefully we will discuss in a moment. And then you focus on these 7 swing states. Again, a reminder, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin in the north, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada in the Sun Belt. And you're talking about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump being within 2% of each other in all 7 of those states, within 1% in 5 of those states. So I think we're going to have an all-nighter on Tuesday going into Wednesday. But my fervent hope is that whichever way this election goes, that it will be acknowledged as legitimate by the loser, who will pledge support for the winner. Because I think the important thing for America beyond this immediate election is it needs to heal. Politically, it needs to heal and find a way forward rather than looking back.
I mean, this is the problem, though, isn't it? That, as you say, is it quite literally too close to call at the moment, and yet it is unlikely that it's going to be a smooth transition.
Well, I think it's likely that Kamala Harris will accept a Donald Trump victory, just as Al Gore in the disputed 2000 election accepted that George W. Bush had won to make sure that there was unity. I am almost certain that Donald Trump will not accept a loss. Even when he won in 2016, he said the polls were rigged. That was false. Of course, famously in 2020, or infamously, he said for months that the election was illegitimate. He proved no fraud in that election. He lost more than 60 court cases, but still he called his supporters out to stop the steal, as he put it. In other words, prevent the orderly transfer of power in January 2021. And my fear is he will do it again. And again, I, respectfully, because it's great talking to you about this on GB News, you had a panel on last night that actually fed that narrative that the election would be rigged. And I'm appealing to the news media, just don't feed this narrative. There's no evidence to support it will be rigged. And it only stokes up the prospects that my native country will have violence if someone doesn't like this outcome.
And we're hearing reports as well, Professor Scott Lucas, that Republicans are planning a lawsuit if Donald Trump loses the election.
Well, they will. I mean, Donald Trump, will have lawsuits all over the place because that's what he did in 2020. But again, I have to emphasize, look at what happened to those lawsuits in 2020. In more than 60 cases, they failed. Most of them were thrown out immediately because there was absolutely no evidence. And the Supreme Court refused to protect Trump, said he had no standing to bring the case. The reason why Trump will bring these lawsuits will be just trying to find some way of winning, and it won't just be lawsuits. He will put pressure on state legislators, state governors to overturn the elections. He unsuccessfully did that last time. He'll put pressure on the U.S. government to overturn the election. He did that last time. And again, at the end of the day, he may call on supporters to take action. And that action may not be peaceful action if he decides that he has to get back to the White House, despite the fact that the legitimate election has said that he has narrowly failed to do so.
I'll tell you what is extraordinary in all of this, Scott, with so much to play for on both sides. I mean, there's a massive problem with that rally of Trump's when that comedian made those comments about Puerto Rico. That could have been an open goal for the Democrats, and they've completely turned it around. I know it was President Biden who made the mistake of calling Trump supporters garbage, but they've absolutely turned it around and gave Donald Trump really an open goal.
Well, the Biden stumble, and it was a horrible stumble, should never have been said, allowed the Trumpists to try to take the oxygen away from that Madison Square Garden rally. But I would say that the reverberations of that rally continue. And again, if you want to talk about issues, is it acceptable, not just in that comment you highlighted, but in comments throughout that rally, to insult part of the United States, Puerto Rico, to insult Hispanic and Latino voters, even when Trump is trying to court them? Is it acceptable to insult Black voters, even when Trump is trying to win them over? Is it acceptable to win Kamala Harris, or to call Kamala Harris a prostitute or Satan or the Antichrist? Is it acceptable to threaten military action against enemies within? So I think those wider issues, alongside, I think beyond Biden's stumble, those could be the ones that make the difference with tens of thousands of votes, if that's the final margin between Harris and Trump.
Well, we have a very special programme on Tuesday night. America Decides, you and I, from 11 p.m. all through the night till 6 a.m.
Till 6 o'clock in the morning. So we'll have all the very latest as it comes out. Those early results could be crucial, actually. They could be key indicators. Things that states like Virginia. Now, Donald Trump is very, very unlikely to win that, but it's by what margin he loses. And if he only loses by a small margin, that's a very good indication that he could then take those swing states. So it's stuff like that which is going to be fascinating on the night.
Yep, you won't miss anything throughout the night here with us. Also, we should be able to hear from US Network, shouldn't we? Towards 5 o'clock in the morning, and they'll be calling the result of the election. Even if we don't have an official result by that stage, could be days before we get one of those, but they'll be calling it.
They'll be calling it.
It'll be right here on GB News. So 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. on Tuesday night, we'll be here for America Decides. Now, it's November officially.
Thank you.
Yes, and as the thoughts turn to the festive season, how would you like to win your Christmas celebrations on us this year?
Well, we've got £25,025 in cash to give you to spend on Christmas, but also a whole load of shopping vouchers, and all that you really want is a GB News goodie bag. Here are the details.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's 20.
Yes, good luck indeed. Now do stay with us. Still to come, it's getting close to Remembrance Day, so find out how Northern Ireland is paying tribute to its greatest generation, its veterans. That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week is Chocolate Week, the ultimate celebration of everything rich, sweet and indulgent.
Yes, and we now have the best person in the studio with us to satisfy all of your chocolate cravings. We're joined now by master chocolatier, Ollie the Choc. Ollie,
hello.
Really good to see you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And you brought some of your chocolate in with you.
I did. I brought some tasting samples. You're very welcome to help yourself.
So what have you got here? Tell us.
So this is my signature chocolate. I call it the Holy Grail. It's got sea salt flakes, crushed Oreo, caramel fudge pieces, very Moorish.
I love a caramel and salt combo, just, you know. I feel like you see it everywhere now. Look,
You won't be disappointed.
Look, I want everyone to see a close-up of this one. Can we get a shot on this one? So this is Oreo, there we are, caramel and salt. Do you want to try some?
You go first.
Help yourselves. And then this bar of chocolate is a little bit of a wild card. That's a mystery flavour, so...
OK, I love a mystery.
I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Hold on this one. This one's amazing.
Are you?
Oreo, caramel.
That's my biggest seller.
I'll keep my palate clean for this. So this is a mystery flavour.
You've got to guess what that is.
Is that a nut in there, I see? Right, here we go. Ready?
I'm not saying anything.
Talk us through.
Very crunchy.
For me, I'm all about textures in chocolate.
Me too.
It has got a good crunch to it, hasn't it? It's not the kind of flavour that you would expect.
Oh, I can't get it.
Is it sweet? Is it salty?
No, it's salty, yeah.
It's
OK,
salty.
hang on, bit more.
OK.
Bit more.
I mean, just keep going.
Crisps? Wait,
It is crispy, it's crunchy. Could it be crisps?
I think it could be crisps. Yeah, it's crisps.
So what flavour?
Salt and vinegar. Cheese and onion.
Yes,
Salt
nailed
and
it. You know.
Oh, you're much better than me.
Love that.
Do you know what? I think I've got a bit of a cold, so my taste buds are
Oh, you're going to blame that, are you?
That's my excuse. That's delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
It's 9:31 now, with just a few days to go until Remembrance Sunday. And one community in Northern Ireland is launching a project to support former soldiers.
Yes, the Ballymena Veterans Association are showing us how it's done when it's come to helping our greatest generation in their elderly years.
Well, let's head over to our Northern Ireland correspondent, Doogie Beattie, who's in Ballymena for us this morning. Hi, Doogie.
Stephen, hi Ellie. Yes, a very damp Northern Ireland, it must be said, but a beautiful town of Ballymena, a very historical town. And it's here that the Veterans Association has decided to really launch a portal, a well-being, etc., to try and gather veterans together, because in the 1998 Good Friday Agreement, veterans got a very raw deal in Northern Ireland. During those negotiations, Tony Blair had agreed that veterans were combatants, and if the paramilitaries weren't getting paid any money from state funding, well, that would not also draw down to the veterans. So they have had, because they've always been veterans and can't change the community associations, they've had a hard time actually looking after the mental well-being of those that served, not just in Northern Ireland, but right across the world. And I'm joined now by Laurie Philpott. Laurie, just step in there. Laurie, tell us a little bit about what's going on here today.
Good morning, Doug. So this morning we have our health and wellbeing event. Starting off at 10:30 with a breakfast. Now it's a health and wellbeing event, so it's a continental breakfast this morning and not a fry. Then thereafter at 12 o'clock we're going to launch our website. Now the website's something that's been an aspiration for some time. Basically, it's an area where people, veterans in particular, can go to, as well as the public. But there is an area for veterans alone, which is password operated. But it's where they can sort of speak out, and there'll always be someone listening from our end of the group, who will get back to them as soon as they can, and then we'll signpost to the relevant authorities possible. Likewise, after that, then we have an array of health and wellbeing events, from massage to reflexology, podiatry, and basically all the advice that you can possibly get from all sorts of agencies, not just veteran orientated, but from across the borough.
Yeah, because this is different, because this also includes blue light. veterans, and many of even our paramedics have seen some terrible things that they really do need help with.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a bit unique. Veteran groups are normally armed forces groups. We are all so armed forces, as you say, the blue lights, paramedics, prison officers, ex-police, and likewise civil servants as well. They're sometimes forgotten about. So we have members who maybe worked in offices during banter, during the Troubles. So we don't leave them out. Everyone's important.
OK, so there you have it. It starts off at about 10:30 this morning with a breakfast. But as Laurie has pointed out there, they are looking to the future and really looking at protecting those that have had to deal with real trauma, really bad situations that have affected the minds of those that look after us, not only our interests abroad, but also here at home.
Yeah, very good point, well made by your guest there, Doogie. Thanks very much indeed.
And such an important cause as well. Thank you, Doogie. Do stay with us. Still to come, Saturday Morning Live has a special today on Tory leadership in store for you this morning. We're going to find out next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 incredible young people from Essex are planning to become the youngest people ever to row, not sail, row, across the Atlantic Ocean.
It's about for 3,000 miles.
It is.
Give or take.
Almost exactly that, Sam.
The 3 flying fish, so-called, consists of Anna, Dunk, Harry, Alan and Rowan Daly, who are preparing to row that 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. It would be the second largest ocean in the world. And the trio are aiming to do that challenge in support of the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that Anna and Harry from the Flying Fish join us now. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
I think the two of you are bonkers, but brilliant. Absolutely incredible what you're doing to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Why did you want to do this?
So our third person, Rowan, his friend actually died. So when he was in secondary school, I believe, one of his peers passed away, and Teenage Cancer Trust supported them and their family a lot. So it was definitely the right charity. Yeah, it was.
Absolutely awful. So you wanted to do something to raise money for teenage cancer. Why rowing?
So my dad did it in 2021.
The trip, the Atlantic trip?
Yeah, he rowed it as a pair. Where we live in Essex, they actually build the boats there. So we used to cycle round there past the boatyard, and he got interested and actually did it. He was the first year after COVID. And one night, we all met in the Air Cadets, so one night after Air Cadets, Rowan actually dropped me off home and the boat was outside. We were obviously waiting to get it sold. And I think he was asking some questions and we stood there at my porch and Rowan said, I reckon we could do that. And I was like, yeah, I reckon we could. And then we brought Harry on board, and that's kind of how it all came together.
If people are watching and they want to support you, do you have a
Yeah, we've
GoFundMe
got
page
social
yet?
media platforms at
Right.
the Free Flying Fish. That's Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and our GoFundMe links in all of the bios on there.
Fantastic.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
9:38, we're going to get another look through the papers for you this morning, as it's a Saturday, with journalist and broadcaster Stephanie Tetchy and the political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Morning,
Hello.
you two.
Morning, you two.
In the Times, Kevin, we keep going on about the Tory leadership race. We're wrong.
Well, according to Linton Crosby, who's the election guru, who's helped the Conservatives in the past, he says that they should stop calling themselves Tories. He said that is the wrong message to send out. He says stick to Conservatives, he says, which represent effort, aspiration, personal responsibility, national unity. He said, but ditch the Tories as a phrase. Now, I've done a bit of research on this as to where Tories comes from, and it's initially thought to emanate from 17th century Irish, meaning outlaw or highwayman. So you can understand why...
Yeah, you wonder why it was adopted in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know.
really.
It's kind of been lost in the midst of time. It's been around for a very long time, the name Tories, and it's a handy little name for us. But he says it's pejorative and it's got negative connotations, so they should just stick to Conservatives. But you were saying that they tried that once before.
Yeah, in 2010, after David Cameron became Prime Minister, CCHQ were pushing news organisations to drop it and to just call them Conservatives, which I think we sort of tried to do for a while, but it didn't last.
No.
Because everyone just...
It's a slip of the tongue.
You don't want to say Conservative,
Yeah.
Conservative all the time.
Yeah.
It's another name to use, isn't it?
Well, whoever's leader, it is a chance for them to rebrand now and kind of hopefully bring a new meaning to what the Tories mean and what their values are going forward.
Lynton Crosby has described it as a dirty word.
Tories.
It needs to change.
Yeah, he says that Labour would never call themselves the Socialists, which he says that Tories like an equivalent.
Yeah. Well, you've got to say, Lynton Crosby knows what he's on about.
He does, yeah. He helped David Cameron, certainly in the past, and Theresa May, although to less success. He was in charge of the campaign in 2017 when she lost her majority. But Boris Johnson has used them as well to great effect. So, yeah, usually when Lynton Crosby speaks, the Tories or the Conservatives listen. So it'll be interesting to see if the new leader takes any of this on board.
Yeah.
Steph, you've got a story about raccoons on the run.
Oh, this story was too sad. So, the World Zoo Park in the Isle of Wight have had to deploy tracker dogs and drones because 4 raccoons native to North America have gone on the run. They're 4 sisters, only 18-month-olds, and they've only been in the zoo for like 3 weeks. So the zoo park are telling the public, do not approach them because they can get frightened if you see them. They're telling people to look through their bonfire piles, their hedges, their trees, and look in trees because apparently raccoons sleep during the day and they're more active towards the end of the day. But what's sad is that 1 raccoon was left behind. So it's 4 sisters have gone and there's just 1 left behind.
Well, there are 5 sisters.
Yeah, so I'm just hoping that they get returned safely. Because you can imagine they just must be frightened. But the big question is, how did they manage to escape from the zoo? You know, all 4 of them as well, without being seen. So
I tell you what, it's a good reminder if you are having village bonfires or that sort of thing, or bonfires in the back garden, give them a good poke before they get lit. See if there's anything in there. Hedgehogs, especially, of course, if they've been built for a while. Need to be very careful with stuff like that. It's a real shame.
They find their way in there, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
Kevin, in the Eye this morning, we were promised a solution to all the potholes in the budget, weren't we?
Yeah, I mean...
And it's not going to work, we're being told.
Well, £500 million has been set aside for potholes, which obviously does sound like a lot of money, but then when you think of the size of the country, the number of local authorities there are, you share that around, and it's not really that much. And the reason that potholes get so much attention is because... you know, voters really notice. Drivers notice. And if they see potholes, everybody think, oh, this country's gone to the dogs, you know. I mean, I remember Rishi Sunak made a big play about how they were going to fill in potholes. He famously had this ridiculous picture of himself staring into a pothole. I remember they put that out. That didn't do him any good.
No.
But
they are dangerous, aren't they?
They
are dangerous. You can muck up your tyres and everything, And it is a tangible example of political failure. And as I say, a lot of people see it and it really annoys them. So it's politicians really need to get it sorted out.
Why are they so hard to fix, potholes? Is it really that big of a job?
It shouldn't be. It's because, I tell you what it is partly, is that councils, because they're a bit tight for money, try and fill them on the cheap. It just doesn't work.
Or last.
You've got to really sort of do it properly.
And if they don't do it properly, I was speaking to one MP actually who she drove through a pothole and it mucked up her tyres and she put in a claim to the council and they paid her out in compensation. So you think that's just one person. You think multiple drivers, every council, all the councils around the country, they're shelling out an awful lot of money. So that eats into the 500 million as well, you would think. So, yeah, you can understand why maybe they're looking for a bit more cash, but unfortunately they've not got it.
If you want to save a bit of cash, apparently you should go and have an IKEA meal.
Yes, at their first UK standalone restaurant, which will be opening in Hammersmith in London. People who go to IKEA love their meatballs. I personally haven't tried them, but I do like...
Steph, you're missing out. They're
love
amazing.
meatballs in general, but obviously because IKEA is Swedish, I can imagine their meatballs are pretty good. But
they're amazing.
This is going to be a cheap restaurant. You're going to get fish and chips for £6.95, a kid's meal for 95p. I can't remember the last time I heard that. And then they'll have stuff like salmon on offer, but it seems like the punters are going to be really happy with this new IKEA restaurant. And I think it is quite good that they are actually expanding because people just love IKEA. So it'll be interesting to see how this restaurant does in London.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what is quite interesting. There's a big piece in The Guardian about it, and they've interviewed two people who like eating there.
Yeah.
And it's a young man who was visiting the restaurant with his sister's boyfriend. A young woman who was visiting the restaurant with her sister's boyfriend.
Hot. Are you trying to imply something?
I just think that's very odd.
I love how that's what
I was thinking, I was like...
You've just sort of left that one hanging.
Like, you could even take her somewhere nice to
Yeah, I'm sure it was all perfect. Can we just say some breaking news, actually? The comedian Janie Godley has died at the age of 63. We know she became particularly famous, actually, during the pandemic because she did those sort of comedy voiceovers of Nicola Sturgeon, which were, though she was quite a supporter of the SNP, actually, wasn't she? And her and Nicola Sturgeon got on very well. But she did do this TikTok or Instagram post, didn't she, about how she was going.
Yeah, and I think her daughter said a couple of days ago that she was in the last beats of her life, I think.
But she did it. I mean, the last that video, it was a very powerful video that she did, actually, and in which it wasn't self-pitying at all.
No, at all. No, it was very brave, and she was very open and honest about her illness, and very accepting that that she was going to die, sadly.
Well, we have just had a statement come through from her management, who says it's with great sadness that we announce the death of our client doctor, Janie Godley, on November the 2nd. She died peacefully in the wonderful Prince and Princess of Wales Hospice in Glasgow, surrounded by her loved ones. To be hugely missed by her friends, her family and her many fans. She'll be remembered for her legendary voiceovers of Nicola Sturgeon during the pandemic, her hilarious and outspoken comedy, but most of all, for just being Janie. It's a lovely thing to see, isn't it?
Very sad.
She did come across as a very nice lady. Yeah. You don't have to agree with her politics, of course. That's a part of the thing, isn't it? You can be entertained by whoever. But what a shame. But at least she faced it strongly at the end. And I think that says a lot about a person, actually.
It really does.
Right, you two, it's been good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too.
Thank you very much indeed. Should we talk about the election?
Yes.
It's happening today. Get the result
Tory leadership
very soon.
race, yes. GB News political editor Christopher Hope joins us now. And Christopher, I cannot even believe the day is here. After 4 months campaigning, we're going to know the result in just about an hour's time.
Yes. Yes, it's been quite a wait. On GB News Live, you'll see the results. We've got a show starting at 10 o'clock this morning with Olivia Utley and Ben Leo. With the results at about 11 o'clock, we'll hear from the chairman, Richard Fuller. 11:05 from Bob Blackman, who's the 1922 chairman who's run this campaign. And then 11:10, we'll hear from the winner, whether it's Kemi Badenoch or Robert Jenrick. I think it's quite interesting, whoever wins, we're going to see a generational shift downwards in age because Robert Jenrick's 42, Kemi Badenoch's 44. The Prime Minister is 62, so the next election he'll be approaching pension age, whereas one of these two leaders, if they're still there, will be able to show a fresh face, a youthful face maybe, to voters. Age will matter, therefore, at the election. That'll be interesting. The choice between the two of them has been one of policies, Robert Jenrick being very firm on ECHR, withdrawal, bringing back the Rwanda plan, scrapping the Human Rights Act, Equality Act, and so it goes on, against more of a vibes campaign campaign by Kemi Badenoch. Of course, she's one policy I think was axing the VAT increase, adding it to private school fees. Otherwise, she's saying I'm a Conservative, I'll do this and this, I'll have policy reviews, and so it goes on. So the choice has been very clear, I think, for members, and we'll see how that plays out. Whatever happens, one of these two candidates must unite the party, and the problem they've got is how many MPs don't support either of them. Looking at my numbers here, I think it was there's 42 MPs backed Badenoch, 41 backed Jenrick. That means as many as 80 MPs don't back either of the winners. Two-thirds of the parliamentary party won't support the winner. That's a bit of a worry, I think, and they've got to try and unite the party around one candidate. Also, some big beasts are leaving the Tory front bench. We know Jeremy Hunt won't be on it. We know that James Cleverly won't be on it. Rishi Sunak obviously will be on the back benches. Oliver Dowden is unlikely to be on it. So who's left? I mean, I think we are about to see a completely reformed Tory party emerge next week, because it's a long way to the next election, 4.5 years of us to get used to them.
It's interesting, though, because as you say, it's problematic when we look at it, Chris, to say, well, who is going to be on that front bench? However, perhaps that is exactly what they need now. They need that reinvention. They need people that we just don't know, so they can reinvent themselves.
Yeah. That's right. I think they've got to reinvent themselves. That's what Kemi Badenoch is saying. Go back to first principles, reshape what is going on. I think what is interesting since Wednesday, what my takeaway from last week, is the idea of the uni party, that nothing divides the Tories and Labour, is for the birds. You have got quite a socialist Labour Party with Labour left-wing policies, and they will not be adopted or supported by the right-wing Tories. So the idea of having one party and they all agree on everything, which you could have made the case for that, I think, in some elements of when Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister against Keir Starmer. That is now not the case. And also, just finally, on the polling you've been mentioning earlier, the Tories now on 29 points, up 4, Labour down 2 on 28 points, but crucially also Reform down 3 points. Lib Dems down 1 point. This polling from BMG Research today in Independent is almost a perfect gift to give to the future leader. Everything is going in the right direction. The Tories are ahead of Labour for the first time since the election, and Reform crucially is down. If that carries on, there's a real chance here of the Tory party.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much, Chris. That's it from us, but do stay tuned, because Olivia Utley and Ben Leo have a Tory leadership special coming up at 10 o'clock. They're with us now. What have we got to come? This is so exciting, isn't it?
Good morning to you both. Yes, look, some people saying that they don't really care about the Conservative leadership because they're a redundant party. I'd argue it's a very important day because they are still the official opposition. They have 130-something MPs, and we need a decent, strong opposition in this country to hold Labour to account. So I'd argue that it does matter. And also the likes of Reform and Nigel Farage, they'll be keeping a keen eye on who wins this race today, because it matters for them tactically as well.
And, of course, as Chris said there, Labour is doing astonishingly badly in the polls at the moment, having won this enormous majority just a few months ago. They're now amazingly trailing 1 point behind the Conservatives. So the Conservatives on 29%, Labour on 28%. That gives a little bit of momentum to this incoming Tory leader and makes it all a bit more exciting.
Well, it is about momentum, isn't it? Because in the sense that if the Tories can roll with that and build up, that will naturally draw, and I think if Reform supporters watching will say, no, it'll never happen. But actually, if they look like they could form the next government, then that will draw people back in.
Well, absolutely. And it's really interesting, I think, that the Conservative MPs have chosen for the final two the two arguably most right-wing candidates. You've got Robert Jenrick, who says that he would like to leave the ECHR straight away if he were to become Prime Minister, and Kemi Badenoch, who's been sort of fighting the war on identity politics for years now. James Cleverly and Tom Tugendhat, seen as the moderates of the party, were evicted in earlier stages. So Conservative MPs clearly believe that the future of the Conservative Party is to the right. They're clearly got their minds very much set on getting those votes back from the Reform Party, who, of course, did so well at the last election. And it feels as though that's where the sort of zeitgeist for the party is at the moment. And it's so interesting as well, this opportunity to rebrand the Conservative Party. Now, we've got the likes of Jeremy Hunt stepping aside, heading to the backbenches. Oliver Dowden probably won't be in the shadow cabinet. But Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick have both said they'd be happy to serve in each other's shadow cabinet.
And all the other leadership contestants, apart from James Cleverly, of course. But the problem with the Conservatives is they need to find, as far as I'm concerned, their identity. Do they want to go down this left-of-centre sort of Lib Dem in disguise path that some people would call the wets, or do they want to be a right-of-centre party that stick to traditional Conservative values? Listen to people such as Theresa May, and she'll say, you don't win elections by lurching to the right, whereas others would say, hang on a minute, we lost the election, we got thumped at the election because we didn't stick to our right-wing history.
All right, well, look, you two, it's been a fascinating show. Get that result in about an hour or so. Thank you very much indeed. We shall leave you with the weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Here's your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office on this Saturday morning. Quite a calm weekend ahead, and with that, a fair bit of cloud around as well. That cloud will keep things mild, but it is also going to bring some spots of rain. Most places will stay often dry, but like I said, a bit of rain coming and going. Nonetheless, it should be pretty light if you do see any at all. That cloud will make it feel a bit mild at times, with temperatures actually peaking around 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but the lack of sunshine means it's not going to feel especially warm at all. As we go through into this evening, and we stick with the largely cloudy but mild theme, which is relatively good news if you're heading to any fireworks displays. For most, it is going to stay pretty calm. Just do be aware across the north of Scotland, the winds will be strengthening here, so turning quite blustery. But further south, for many, it's going to stay pretty calm. Still the chance of some spots of rain, but they're still going to be pretty light if you do see any rain, so don't worry too much. And with the cloud, temperatures not dropping a huge amount. But again, towards the south coast of England, here it could turn a little bit breezy as well. Overnight, most places are going to stay fairly cloudy. Some breaks in the cloud, though, over East Anglia, maybe central parts of England, could allow for temperatures to dip a little bit more than elsewhere, so a slightly fresher feel. Perhaps some mist and fog patches developing, and also across eastern parts of Scotland could turn a little bit chilly here, perhaps a touch of frost. Otherwise, a mild start for many of us tomorrow morning. As we go through the day itself, again, the cloud may be thick enough for some rain, perhaps in the south